Chapter 2276. Really? Lanya cheered and almost jumped up. She smiled at Sui. Duguyuma also felt relieved and said happily, "That's great. I've finally helped you with something." Sui recalled how Duguyuma had rushed into the deep-sea realm alone. He was still fearful and said reproachfully, "Miss Dugu, you don't have to do so much for me. If the glazed heavenly stamen is stained with your blood, how am I supposed to live with myself?" After saying that, the three of them fell silent. Duguyuma smiled faintly and said, "I open my eyes for you. Of course, it's natural for me to use my eyes to do something for you. I didn't think too much about it." Sui let out a long sigh in his heart. The children in front of him had great affection for him, and Suyi's heart was instantly filled with a gentle warmth. Boom! As Sui finished his words, the godly cloud in the sky suddenly burst open. Numerous, incomparably enormous pitch-black cracks suddenly spread out, accompanied by a terrifying rumble that seemed like the sky was collapsing and the earth was caving in. It resounded through the heavens and the earth and spread to the nine heavens. Soon, the aura of the entire Tianfeng ruins started to thin. The three of them had a premonition that the space was about to collapse. What happened? Duguyuma's eyes moved slightly as he looked at the sky. His blue eyes were filled with fear. Sui and Lanya could guess what had happened. Lanya's eyes were filled with helplessness. Sui's green robe fluttered. He smiled at Duguyuma and said, "It's nothing. A few people are fighting with the desolate engulfing heavenly beast." Fighting? With the desolate engulfing heavenly beast? Duguyuma was even more frightened when he heard Suyi's words. The desolate engulfing heavenly beast was a terrifying, savage beast. If he did not have the blue crystal double moon eyes, how many people in the world could fight with the desolate engulfing heavenly beast? One could only imagine how terrifying his strength was. In an instant, Sui stopped smiling. His expression was indifferent as he said, "Lanya, do you want to stay here or go see your grandfather?" "I'll go out with you," Lanya finally said after thinking for a while. "I'll go with you," Duguyuma said to Sui with a pale face. Sui shook his head and quickly summoned the primeval chaos ancient bell. The ancient and ethereal chi shrouded Duguyuma as he said softly, "The battle will be intense later. Let Uncle Hong take care of you. You've done enough for me." Seeing the determination in Suyi's eyes, Duguyuma listened to his heart for the first time and nodded obediently. "What beautiful eyes. Little kid, come to Grandpa." Chi Fei Hong smiled kindly and called Duguyuma into the ancient bell. Sui also handed over the heavenly stamen glaze he had just obtained to Uncle Hong, instructing him to study it carefully. Sui didn't have the time to consider whether this was the real heavenly crystal pistol or not. Lanya was used to Suyi's shocking actions. She looked at Sui calmly as he put away the ancient bell and looked at the space crack in the sky. "Sky-piercing golden dragon finger, open!" Sui shouted. In an instant, Suyi's green robe fluttered like a graceful swan. Accompanied by the roar of a golden dragon, golden light spread out from his knuckles. The entire sky was instantly filled with howling winds. The sky darkened and the clouds surged. When the golden light from his finger shot up to the sky, the dark aura in the space crack in the distance fluctuated and trembled. The dark space crack spread out instantly, and the arc of the space crack increased by a few notches. The domineering aura of the dragon was unparalleled. Under the guidance of the roaring thunder, Suyi's aura suddenly became violet. The flames under his feet surged, and he rushed toward the space crack. He was like a golden dragon, soaring and roaring for thousands of miles. Behind him, an equally terrifying aura of the golden dragon followed Suyi's footsteps and rushed into the space crack. In the dark space, it had become a world of vital chi light. Under the bright light, the golden dragon, white tiger, and white dragon surrounded the desolate, devouring heavenly beast tightly. The mountain-sized desolation engulfing heaven beast sat on the ground, panting heavily. The smell of blood spread throughout the space along with the airflow. Scarlet blood flowed down from its chest and gradually gathered into a shocking river. This beast is really difficult to deal with. Spear Ghost and Hu Chi, who had lower cultivation, led the group to face the desolate, devouring heavenly beast. They were full of fear. Rumble. Long Kuei stood in the air and looked at the desolate, devouring heavenly beast with a cold expression. The golden dragon behind him was like an unshakable rock. Its lifelike dragon claws were reaching toward the desolate, devouring heavenly beast. In an instant, the dazzling golden light spread across the sky, and the thunderous roar resounded through the sky. Hold on tight. Sui is still in this beast's stomach. Don't slack off. Long Kuei was furious. In a short moment, the three groups of people stepped forward at the same time. The dazzling vital chi shadows gathered again, and the endless energy surged, ready to take down the desolate, devouring heavenly beast in one fell swoop. Come on, despicable humans. I'm not afraid of you. The desolate, devouring heavenly beast stood up again. Its body was 5,000 to 6,000 meters long, and its roar shook the sky. Suddenly, the demonic chi spread across the sky, and the violent airflow shattered a large area of space again, setting off huge waves. Open its stomach for me. Long Kuei's heart was filled with Sui. He specially ordered the people not to kill the desolate, devouring heavenly beast. He was afraid that Sui would die in the space in its stomach. If Sui died because of it, the loss would outweigh the gain. In the next moment, the people shouted loudly. The tiger roared and the dragon roared. Their terrifying power shook the sky and earth. The ancient and desolate aura was like a group of beasts fighting for supremacy, covering the sky. 3 shadows and 1 beast, facing each other across the sky. Rumble. At this moment, the desolate, devouring heavenly beast's demonic chi also surged. It moved its fists and lightning flashed. The destructive lightning whizzed out and rushed toward the 3 forces. Rumble. Its huge body dragged a pitch-black space crack and directly pierced through the space. In an instant, the white tiger and white dragon turned into light shadows and attacked the desolate, devouring heavenly beast from both sides. At this moment, the dragon's roar resounded and golden light gushed out. The huge golden dragon was extremely ferocious, and it shot toward the sky. The ancient and vast aura suddenly smashed into the desolate, devouring heavenly beast's stomach. Rumble. The space was completely shaken. The huge, desolate, devouring heavenly beast shook violently. Its stomach, which was as hard as iron, cracked open instantly. Countless cracks spread out like a spiderweb. The whole space kept exploding. Looking from afar, the mountain-like black figure cut through the space and retreated thousands of meters. High up in the sky, the lightning fanned and thunder roared. A ray of light shot out from the desolate, devouring heavenly beast's mouth, shaking the universe and resounding through the sky. What a powerful aura! How can there be such a powerful aura? Is that kid out? Is he out? Long Kuei shouted. His eyes were full of anticipation as he looked at the place where the light was surging. Chapter 2277. The air was filled with a horrifying pressure. Under the light, ripples were turbulent. A green robe fluttered in the wind as he stood in the air. The light energy around his body was like a stream of light that broke through the air and lingered in front of him. It was Sui who had jumped out from the stomach of the desolation, devouring heaven beast. Long family, divine tiger sect, sky dragon sect, long time no see. Sui's lips curled up slightly, and a ghostly light flashed in his deep eyes. At this time, behind him, a light gradually surged from all directions. The golden dragon's roar resounded through the heavens and the earth. A lifelike golden dragon shadow bloomed in the void like fireworks, and a horrifying energy with an extreme destructive aura swept over. If this familiar golden figure was not Longya, who else could it be? When the 3 groups of people saw the light fall, their pupils trembled violently, and they all thought that they had seen wrongly. Miss Longya? Elder Spear Ghost held his long spear, and a murderous aura suddenly stopped. He looked at Elder Long Kuei in disbelief. Suddenly, all the martial artists, including those from the Sky Dragon sect, kept quiet out of fear and did not dare to speak loudly. Long Kuei's granddaughter and Su-Yi had come out of the stomach of the desolate devouring heavenly beast at the same time. What did this mean? After thinking about it carefully, Spear Ghost and Hu Chi showed an embarrassed expression at the same time. Then, the corners of their mouths twitched and they sneered. Longya, why are you here? Get over here. When Long Kuei saw his granddaughter and Su-Yi together, his face turned purple and he shouted loudly, Longya, your grandpa is calling you. Go over quickly. Su-Yi smiled at Longya, and his warm eyes revealed a sense of determination, as if to say, no matter what, I will always be behind you. Since she had chosen to come out with him, she would be open and above board. There was no need to be afraid of anyone. Longya's eyes flickered, and the moment she met Su-Yi's eyes, she calmed down. Then, the golden light around her flickered, and the light was released. It turned into a golden dragon shadow, and came to Long Kuei's side with its head held high. Longya, you! How dare you! You ran out of the heavenly palace again. Long Kuei lowered his voice. His steel-like face was filled with disappointment and anger as he pulled Longya aside. Grandfather, Longya wanted to say something, but hesitated. An indescribable, complicated emotion surged between her brows. Long Kuei's eyes flashed like lightning, as if he could see through people's hearts. He stared at Longya and whispered, Why are you with Su-Yi? Did you run out of the heavenly palace just for Su-Yi? Grandfather Long Kuei's questioning was like a sharp pain in Longya's heart. Longya could not lie to her closest family in the world. She nodded in agreement and looked at Long Kuei. The latter could no longer hold back his surging, killing intent and anger. You've been distracted ever since you came back from the cloud state. It has nothing to do with Long Song. It's because of this brat, right? Long Kuei sneered. His tightly clenched fists trembled slightly. The golden dragon aura that had already surged out of his body made Long Kuei look like a god of death. Longya knew that her grandfather was still restraining his emotions. She shook her head and said, No. Grandfather, I don't know what wrong Su-Yi has done. Why must the Long family kill him? Grandfather, didn't you teach me to be kind and benevolent? Why are you here? What are you doing here? What do you know? Long Kuei glared at her. His fierce eyes were like those of a dragon. Then he lowered his voice and said, This is the great plan of the Dragon Palace. You, my granddaughter, how can you be with this brat? How can my Long Kuei family stand in the heavenly palace if word gets out? On the other side, Su-Yi was relieved to see that Long Kuei did not fly into a rage against Longya. Looking around, the people from Sky Dragon sect and Divine Tiger sect were filled with wariness. Layer after layer of killing intent swept out like tidal waves. Su-Yi, on the other hand, calmed down and fixed his gaze on the desolate engulfing heaven beast behind him. Maybe it was because it was seriously injured, but the desolate devouring heavenly beast body had shrunk a lot. However, it was still 4 or 5 times the size of Su-Yi. Lofty and domineering, majestic and powerful. You could change your size? Su-Yi looked at the desolate devouring heavenly beast, who was seeing stars and bleeding from its abdomen, and asked in confusion. The desolate devouring heavenly beast closed its eyes and nodded at Su-Yi. It was obvious that the desolate devouring heavenly beast had been seriously injured in the previous battle. At this moment, even if he wanted to speak, he would need to exert a great deal of strength. Then Su-Yi's eyes flashed, and he said to the desolate devouring heavenly beast, I'll save you. How about we deal with these people together? The desolate devouring heavenly beast opened its eyes and looked at Su-Yi. Then it said in a low voice, You have the aura of my master. Who are you? Suddenly, Su-Yi put his hands behind his back and moved his eyebrows. A dozen bottles of spiritual liquid had already landed on the desolate devouring heavenly beast's body. Su-Yi's voice slowly entered the desolate devouring heavenly beast's ears and said, put all these spiritual liquid on your wounds. I'll leave the rest to you. What master are you talking about? We'll talk about it later. Looking at Su Yi's back, the desolate devouring heavenly beast's eyes flashed for the first time. It said softly, "Okay, clang." A series of crisp sounds exploded. The spiritual liquid was like a viscous agent that quickly closed up the desolate devouring heavenly beast's wounds. A vast and ancient aura filled the air. The desolate devouring heavenly beast, who was gradually able to regain its consciousness, had tears in its eyes. In its eyes, Su Yi's back was gradually transforming into its past self. At that time, the desolate devouring heavenly beast was still very weak. Under the iron skin, it was as black as a small stone. No matter where it went, it was the most inconspicuous existence. However, in the ancient times, the desolate devouring heavenly beast suffered all kinds of torture. Even if it was riddled with wounds, the desolate devouring heavenly beast's eyes were always surging with an unyielding radiance. Master! The desolate devouring heavenly beast once again recognized Su Yi as its master. Its gaze fell on the spiritual liquid on its chest. It was suffused with an ancient aura, causing the desolate devouring heavenly beast to erupt with an ancient aura. Impudent! Longya, you've disappointed me too much. Long Kuei roared angrily. The dispute between him and Longya instantly erupted. Behind him, Spear Ghost and Elder Hu Chi saw the changes in the aura of Su Yi and the desolate devouring heavenly beast. They couldn't wait and said to Long Kuei, "Elder Long Kuei, that beast has recovered." In an instant, everyone's gaze was focused on Su Yi and the desolate devouring heavenly beast. Previously, Spear Ghost and Hu Chi were certain that the desolate devouring heavenly beast had swallowed Su Yi. However, when everyone saw that Su Yi didn't run away and the desolate devouring heavenly beast was seriously injured, they didn't pay much attention to it. Chapter 2278. However, the aura that exploded in the sky once again cast a layer of haze over everyone's hearts. A bad premonition instantly surged in their hearts. Long Kuei pushed Longya behind him and looked at Su Yi and the desolate devouring heavenly beast with boundless killing intent in his eyes. He said, "Brat, you're really something. You've even set your sights on me. Today, I'll let you die without a burial place. Come on, old thief. I'll keep you company." Su Yi sneered. Immediately, the vast dark space surged again. The surrounding martial artist's eyes were instantly filled with fear. The destructive energy spread out once again. Everyone looked at Su Yi's skyrocketing aura and were secretly shocked. A young man of about 20 years old actually had the cultivation of a 7th-level origin ancestor and could come out safely from the desolate devouring heavenly beast stomach. Perhaps everyone will want to find out what kind of secrets Su Yi had with such a miracle. Immediately, the three groups of people shouted. Suddenly, it was as if a torrent had collapsed between heaven and earth. Three extremely terrifying shadows instantly soared into the sky. A golden dragon, a white tiger, and a white horned dragon each took one side. The collapsed dark space lit up once again. "Desolate devouring heavenly beast, lend me a hand." Su Yi shouted. Currently, the Long family, Sky Dragon sect, and Divine Tiger sect had sent out their strongest forces. They were all at the origin domain realm. Such a scale was much more terrifying than the siege of a few thousand origin emperors. Without the help of the desolate devouring heavenly beast, Su Yi knew that even if he escaped today, he would have to pay a terrible price. Rumble. Terrifying thunderclouds rose once again. The incomparably huge aura instantly sucked the water out of the dark space completely. Within the dark space, the thunderclouds surged. The desolate devouring heavenly beast roared and instantly stood up. Although its current size was not as huge as before, it was still as tall as a small mountain. The desolate devouring heavenly beast held Su Yi in its palm. On its black iron palm, Su Yi's green robe fluttered in the wind. His entire body was enveloped by an unparalleled amount of pressure. The heavenly might rolled like a god, looking down on the heavens and earth. Everyone present, including Longya, was stunned. Their eyes were filled with fear as if they had been petrified. Weren't Su, Yi, and Longya sucked into the stomach of the desolate, devouring heavenly beast at the same time? How did the desolate, devouring heavenly beast suddenly become Su Yi's combat strength? From the looks of it, the desolate, devouring heavenly beast seemed to be obedient to Su Yi. Could it have recognized Su Yi as its master in such a short period of time? This strange phenomenon, which had never been seen or heard of before, caused everyone to stop in their tracks. Don't waver. No matter what, let's kill this kid together. Today, either he dies or I die. His granddaughter had failed to live up to his expectations, and the desolate, devouring heavenly beast's strength had already recovered. This made Long Kuei even more furious. Long Kuei suddenly gave the order, causing all the experts behind him to return to their senses, and then their origin domain realm auras surged like ghosts as they blasted explosively towards Su Yi. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The three enormous divine beast phantoms once again swept over like lightning. In the violent space, dragon roars shook the sky, tiger roars sounded continuously, and the white hornless dragon released an extremely terrifying and cold sound wave that rumbled in the air. In an instant, Su Yi's figure also began to move. Su Yi and the desolate, devouring heavenly beast's voices seemed to merge into one as they simultaneously said to the lightning-like silhouettes, "Kill." The Origin Supreme technique was crazily activated, and a vast primordial storm surged out. In an instant, a mysterious light covered the space, and an enormous and terrifying pressure swept across heaven and earth, causing people to feel a sense of insignificance in their hearts. Among the crowd present, only Su Yi and the desolate, devouring heavenly beast knew what kind of tacit understanding they had. The two of them were like natural battle partners, and their auras were connected to each other. Even the aura they exhaled was exactly the same. Am I really the owner of the desolate, devouring heavenly beast? Otherwise, how could it be connected to my primordial origin supreme technique? Su Yi suddenly had such an illusion the moment his figure flew out. Crossing the space, Su Yi had already completely displayed the desolate, destroying heavenly star on the palm of the desolate, devouring heavenly beast. Su Yi's body was covered by the divine bell, and the mysterious runes lingered around him. A terrifying surge of power helped the desolate, devouring heavenly beast to unleash its demonic aura to the extreme. Under the shroud of Su Yi's aura, the desolate, devouring heavenly beast, who was originally evenly matched with the three parties, seemed to be assisted by God, and its eyes shot out an extremely fierce light. Boom! The sound of wind and thunder was sonorous, and at this moment, the divine beast phantoms that looked like a phoenix and a dragon surged around the desolate, devouring heavenly beast's black body. Su Yi's left arm trembled, and he commanded the front. A cold order came down, and he said, "Destroy them. Roar." The desolate, devouring heavenly beast, who was getting more and more courageous, suddenly waved its right hand, as if it was driving the energy between heaven and earth. A gale suddenly rose, and the powerful gale that was visible to the naked eye was violent and fierce. Suddenly, countless pitch-black space cracks appeared densely. Bang! The energy-light fist was invincible, and it easily removed the shackles of space. Wind and thunder shrouded the fist, and it directly swept past the three divine beast phantoms. Suddenly, an extreme pressure connected the three divine beast phantoms together in one go. One punch to hit three divine beasts. Only three earth-shattering rumbles were heard, and within the violent space, the divine beast phantoms were smashed to pieces. The crazy space fluctuation was like a stormy sea, causing a large area of space to constantly distort. The sound of the explosion had not yet faded away, and the crazy space fluctuation was still continuing. The three divine beasts separated, and it was the best opportunity for Su-yi to defeat them one by one. Take advantage of this opportunity. Kill the people of the Divine Tiger sect and the Sky Dragon sect first. Su-yi shouted loudly. At this time, Long Kei and the Long family, who were implicated, retreated thousands of meters back and could only watch as Su-yi attacked separately. They could not help at all. The key point was, no one expected that under the cover of Su-yi's light, the desolate devouring heavenly beast could produce such a terrifying power. Bang! Bang! The two fists, which were like collapsing mountains, once again hit the Divine Tiger sect and the Sky Dragon sect. Then, a shrill roar flew out from the hands of Spear Ghost and Elder Hu-chi, and suddenly, a large area of violent space trembled endlessly. Everyone dispersed. Seeing this, Hu-chi knew that he could not stop the berserk, desolate, devouring heavenly beast. Suddenly, his ferocious eyes were filled with killing intent, and his ferocious face was incomparably fierce. Divine Tiger Sect, today's death, I will tell sect leader Shangwan. Help this old man delay it, and it can be considered as a contribution to this hunt. On the other side, Elder Spear Ghost quickly understood and also came out, and a terrifying spear shadow was placed in front of him. In the violent dark space, Hu-chi's saber light was awe-inspiring, and the spear shadow was unpredictable. Suddenly, he forcibly pulled out a small escape space under the fist wind of the desolate, devouring heavenly beast. Chapter 2279. It's you. Su-yi's eyes were trembling, and blood instantly condensed in the depths of his pupils. In an instant, Su-yi saw clearly the weapons used by Hu-chi and Spear Demon. His eyes gradually became gloomy, and his face gradually became gloomy. He shouted loudly, "You two old thieves, the blood feud on Demon Mountain was caused by you." The terrifying fist wind, accompanied by the lightning, swept across the sky. The golden light was dazzling, and it was fierce and murderous. The aura of the desolate, engulfing heavenly beast spread out and exploded along the way, and a terrifying sea of fire swept across the sky and earth. Suddenly, the desolate, engulfing heavenly beast's lightning fist whistled through the dark space. In the dark space, more than a dozen super powerhouses from the Sky Dragon sect and the Divine Tiger sect were heavily pressured by the huge force. They all spat out blood and were sent flying backward. Under the influence of Su-yi's Origin Supreme technique, the desolate, engulfing heavenly beast, which had recovered, was actually so terrifying. In an instant, a terrifying cry resounded through the sky. All the powerhouses did not expect that the desolate, engulfing heavenly beast could continue to strengthen. On the other side, after hearing Su-yi's words, Hu-chi, Spear Demon, and Elder Long Kuei, who was farther away, were all shocked. Before they came, the Long family had begun to suspect that Su-yi had an unclear relationship with Tian Yao School. Now it was confirmed. Su-yi was from Tian Yao School. Chila, little bastard, it's really you. That old guy sent you away that year. What a pity. He didn't eliminate the root of the problem and let you develop to this point. Hu-chi's ferocious eyes revealed a trace of a sneer. He did not have the slightest remorse for the tragedy on Demon Mountain. Spear Demon also curled the corner of his mouth and stared coldly at Su-yi. The lightning spear in his hand drew a space ripple in the air. Spear Demon said to Su-yi, "So what? Boy, even if you can defeat us today, you will definitely die in the future. Even if we don't kill you today, we will make you a ghost in the mountain, just like the remaining divine monster." After that, Elder Changui turned to Long Kuei and said, "Elder Long Kuei will make a move first. As for the Dragon God, the Long Eagle Sect Master will personally hand it over to him. I'll have to trouble you to delay him for a while." Now, the desolate, engulfing heavenly beast momentum was not weaker than before, and only Elder Long Kuei could stall for time. Therefore, Spear Ghost and Hu-chi knew that it was meaningless for them to stay. "You are not allowed to leave," Su-yi shouted as he activated the Origin Supreme technique. Su-yi, who was in the air, had already turned into a fiery light as he rushed towards Spear Ghost and Elder Hu-Chi. The battle at the Spirit Ancient Village had long become an indelible nightmare in Su Yi's heart. Today, they had finally found the culprit. Only by fighting to the end would they be able to pay tribute to the heroic spirits of the Spirit Ancient Village. Today, even if these two were dragons or tigers, Su Yi would pull out a few of their teeth. Swish! Swish! The light under Su Yi's feet shone brightly as the power of the Emperor Sparrow and the Golden Dragon was fully unleashed. The powerful energy waves were like a roaring flood. However, as Su Yi was chasing after them, he could feel an even more powerful Golden Dragon's aura coming from behind him, causing the entire space to tremble rapidly. The black cave seemed to have exploded as a ferocious Golden Dragon pierced through the space and headed straight for Spear Ghost. Hu-Chi, Spear Ghost, did I say that you can leave? The one who came was Long Kuei. His powerful energy lifted his long robe as he bent his right hand into a claw and aimed directly at Spear Ghost's spear. Boom! The claw was light, but it contained an unparalleled Golden Dragon's aura. Long Kuei raised his eyebrows as a ferocious light shot out. Suddenly, a destructive shockwave blasted on his Spear Ghost's body, shattering his silver spear. Spear Ghost was like a cannonball that was sent flying backwards into the dark space. When Hu-Chi saw this, Yuan-Chi gathered under his feet. The terrifying scene made Hu-Chi's expression change rapidly as he mumbled, "Why? Long Kuei, what are you doing?" At this time, Long Kuei was already injured. In addition to the fact that he had used up all his Yuan-Chi, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His cold gaze shifted from Su Yi to Hu-Chi as he said coldly, "Go back. It's impossible that the Dragon God doesn't know what Yer has done. Huh? You want to leave just because of this?" Long Kuei could not stand steadily as he stood at the side. Su Yi's expression changed instantly. It turned out that Long Kuei was helping Long Ye to cover up her relationship with Su Yi. In other words, Long Kuei also knew that it was difficult for him to survive, and Long Ye could not be implicated. "Grandfather!" Long Ye quickly rushed forward and supported Long Kuei. Her eyes were already filled with tears. Everyone present was shocked. The people from Sky Dragon Sect, Divine Tiger Sect, and Long family all sucked in a breath of cold air. Based on this, Long Kuei was going to protect Long Ye to the end. Those who knew about this matter would not be able to survive. Su Yi, the desolation-devouring heaven beast, and Long Kuei together could deal with these injured Yuan domain experts. Even if they had to spend some effort, it was not impossible to annihilate them all. Long Kuei, do you think Su Yi will let you go just because of this? Do I need to remind you of what your Long family has done? Spear Ghost's eyes trembled as a bad premonition surged in his heart. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he looked at Long Kuei. Long Kuei put his hand on Long Ye's shoulder, his eyes cold as he looked at Su Yi and said, "I will bear the Long family's debt, but what I want is your death." Rumble. Long Kuei and Su Yi signaled each other with their eyes. Su Yi returned to the palm of the desolate engulfing heaven beast. The man and the beast's energy waves spread out crazily, aiming at the remaining warriors of the Long family. At the same time, Long Kuei and Long Ye set off another violent fluctuation in the dark space. In an instant, a golden dragon's roar resounded through heaven and earth. Suddenly, in front of Long Kuei, an aura of a golden dragon that could destroy everything in the world spiraled into a dimensional space. The domineering destructive power made Spear Demon realize that his death was imminent. His soul trembled as if it had suffered a heavy blow. "No, Long Kuei, you will regret this," Spear Ghost roared. His pupils gradually widened as the golden dragon's energy in his eyes suddenly filled up. The golden dragon's roar was followed by a domineering shockwave. The sound of explosions was like a series of explosions, causing people's ears to ring. Spear Ghost, who was hit by the shockwave, was completely turned into a hollow corpse. Behind him, the dazzling light continued to burst forth. The desolation-devouring heaven beast which was killing in all directions, swung its heavy fists. It was like 1,000 mountains were galloping over. Dozens of figures were sent flying like broken kites. At this moment, in the dark space, there was a rain of blood. In just a few moments, dozens of top experts from the heavenly barbarian territory were beaten to the point that they could not fight back. They were lying on the ground, dying. After killing Spear Ghost, Long Kuei staggered back with blood flowing out of his mouth. Fortunately, Lanya was by his side to take care of him. Lanya could not stop sobbing as she looked at Long Kuei. Chapter 2280. Lanya knew that Long Kuei was doing all this for her sake. If it were not for her, it would be easy for Long Kuei to leave. Stupid girl, you still have the cheek to cry. Long Kuei smiled bitterly. His white beard was stained red as he patted Lanya's head. His eyes were filled with reproach and blame. At this moment, the desolate, devouring heavenly beast carried Su-Yi and walked over slowly with ferocious steps. Heaven and earth shook and the void roared. Its black body was like a black mountain, giving off an invisible pressure. The desolate, devouring heavenly beast's thundercloud eyes shone brightly, intimidating all who looked at it. Su-Yi, you can't hurt my grandfather. Lanya stood in front of Long Kuei. Her tear-stained face was filled with fear. Long Kuei, who was tightly protected, had a kind and warm look in his eyes for the first time. He looked at the green-robed Su-Yi on the black palm and said softly, Lanya, step aside. Some things are destined to be resolved. You're right. There are some things that need to be said. Su-Yi curled his lips. The desolation devouring heaven beast beneath him had already annihilated all the disciples of the Sky Dragon sect, Divine Tiger sect, and Long family. It rushed to Long Kuei's front, and its eyes were filled with killing intent. Despicable human, how dare you make me look so miserable? Master, let me kill this guy with one punch. These people from the Long family are too despicable. As soon as it finished speaking, the desolate, devouring heavenly beast's terrifying aura surged again. Its huge body charged toward Long Kuei, its terrifying aura twisting the surrounding space. Swish! Seeing this, Lanya closed her eyes and opened her arms, blocking Long Kuei's attack without hesitation. She tilted her head slightly to the side, not daring to look. The invincible chi that covered the sky blew Long Ya's blonde hair up high. Hold on, Su-Yi shouted. The black mountain-like fist formed a sharp contrast with Long Ya's body. The fist suddenly stopped half an inch away from Long Ya. The desolate, devouring heavenly beast looked at Su-Yi in confusion. It was as if it was asking why Su-Yi had shown mercy to the Long clan. Suddenly, Long Kuei, who was seriously injured, saw his granddaughter block the shocking punch for him. He was so scared that his face turned pale. He quickly pulled Lanya back and checked her injuries. He then said, Boy, the three families have fallen into your hands today. This old man is willing to exchange my life for Ya-Er's life. If you dare to hurt my Ya-Er, I will make you suffer, even if I have to risk my life. Grandfather. Lanya turned around with tears in her eyes. She turned to Su-Yi and said, Su-Yi, no. Please let my grandfather go. Whatever you want to do, I will do as you say. The two of them were fighting to plead for each other. Su-Yi's eyes were fixed on Long Kuei. His cold eyes could not hide the strong, killing intent in them, as he said indifferently, Lanya, the Long clan has done so many dirty things for the heavenly metal-suppressing stone. They almost destroyed the entire Chaos realm. You want me to let him go? Just the Boang sect alone has killed tens of thousands of disciples. Ask them if they can let him go. Ask the old, weak, sick, and weak people. Ask them if they can let him go. Suddenly, Long Ya's body trembled. She had been locked up in the heavenly palace for many years. Even if she knew about the Long clan's actions, she did not have such a thorough understanding. The tragedy of Shanglong village and the ruthlessness of Long One and Long Shan were still vivid in Long Ya's mind. At that moment, Long Ya lowered her head dejectedly. She couldn't refute Su-Yi's words. His and his grandfather's lives were important, but were the lives of those innocent villagers and the martial artists who were implicated not important? Long Yu choked, and tears welled up in her eyes. She heard Long Kuei say loudly behind her, "Boy, everyone has different standpoints and goals. Don't hurt with a heart-piercing skill. Is kind and has nothing to do with these things. Don't force her." After saying that, Long Kuei stood up from the ground with difficulty. His hunched body could not support his weak body. He staggered but still stubbornly stood in the same place. Facing the heavenly beast, Long Kuei was still shocked by Su Yi. Until now, Long Kuei still could not understand why Su Yi was able to tame the desolate, engulfing heavenly beast after coming out of his stomach. "Brat, you can take this old man's life away," Long Kuei said righteously. There was no sign of compromise in his cold eyes. Instead, he was willing to die for the Long clan. After saying that, a golden glow surged out of Long Kuei's hand and locked Long Yu to the ground. No matter how she struggled, she could not break free. Her grandfather was willing to give up dozens of Yuan domain experts and even his life for her. Within the light circle, Long Yu's eyes were about to burst. She painfully stretched out her hands to break free. Her aura was locked, and she could only helplessly show pain in her eyes. "Come on, boy." Long Kuei walked past Long Yu and squatted down with difficulty. As if it was his last gentle reminder, Long Kuei looked at the tearful Long Yu and gently shook his hand as if to tell her to stop crying. "Silly girl, the result of this hunt will definitely alarm the dragon god. Even if you go back, you will not be able to escape punishment. Haven't you always wanted to escape from the Heaven Palace? After your grandfather's death, the world will be your home. But remember, you are the successor of the Golden Dragon. You must not lose the ambition of my Long Kuei bloodline." Long Kuei squeezed out a smile on his old face for the last time. He turned around and walked toward the surging, desolate, engulfing heaven beast. Looking up, Su Yi stood in the air. The Origin Supreme technique surged around him as if he was connected to heaven and earth. In just a short moment, the desolate, engulfing heaven beast could not wait any longer. It immediately punched out, and the surrounding void collapsed. An aura that could destroy everything in the world descended into the dark space. Clang! A low roar suddenly sounded from Su Yi's heart. The Origin ancient bell, with divine runes wrapped around it, floated in the air and collided with the desolate, engulfing heaven beast's fist. The domineering, destructive force was irresistible. Under Long Kuei's astonished gaze, the extreme pressure of heaven and earth instantly swept across the sky. The dark space was directly shattered. The pitch-black crack directly flipped Long Kuei to the ground and swept across heaven and earth. Rumble! The earth quaked and the mountains shook. Long Kuei was instantly flipped over and shot toward Long Yu like a cannonball. The light circle shattered and Long Yu broke free and hugged Long Kuei tightly. At this moment, heaven and earth began to change color. In the pitch-black crack in the space, a dark space vortex began to condense. Su Yi walked across the sky as if he was stepping on the stars. He looked down at Long Kuei and said reluctantly, "Long Kuei, I will spare your old life today. If you want to thank me, thank you for having a good granddaughter." Chapter 2281. Su Yi. Long Yu looked at Su Yi in disbelief. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she was extremely agitated. "Boy, if you don't kill me today, you won't have the chance in the future. Don't regret it." Long Kuei wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. There was a trace of surprise in his cold eyes. "I will destroy the Long family. Old bastard, your life is just a little longer. I just don't want Long Yu to be sad today. At that time, everything will come to an end. Win or lose, live or die, I will naturally get my revenge." The corner of Su Yi's mouth curled up. His cold, steel-like face was filled with disdain. Su Yi could kill Long Kuei directly, but it was no different from killing Long Yu directly. Long Yu gave him the Dragon Armor Geomancy map so that he could go to the Yun family and send him a message from afar. He had to take revenge. Yes, Su Yi also had to thank her. Su Yi never wanted to owe anyone anything, but no one owed Su Yi anything, not even a little. Lanya, take your grandfather and leave. From now on, we don't owe each other anything. I thank you for what you did to me. Su-yi said coldly and turned his gaze away, afraid that he would change his mind. Lanya stared at Su-yi, who was shrouded in holy light, and did not say anything for a long time until Long Kue reminded her, "Yeah, or let's go." Lanya, who had just recovered from her sadness, nodded and helped Long Kue up. Her eyes were full of disappointment. Boy, Hu Chi of the Divine Tiger sect is also a member of the Demon Mountain, but he escaped. Long Kue reminded him, "I will take care of it. Next time, we will meet in the Heavenly Palace. I will not show mercy." Su-yi said coldly and turned his back on them. Su-yi did not turn around until Lanya and Long Kue left the dark space. Su-yi watched as the gigantic spatial crack in the sky gradually closed up. Only then did the murderous intent in his eyes fade away. "Master, why did you let them go just now?" The desolate, devouring heavenly beast also began to withdraw its aura and put Su-yi down from its palm. Without the enemy, the desolate, devouring heavenly beast's body began to shrink. It looked even smaller than an ordinary savage beast. Looking at the pocket-sized, desolate, swallowing, heaven-shocking beast, which looked like a black iron rock with eyes, Su-yi's lips curled up slightly, and he said with a smile, "Since you call me master, then I'll do you a favor today. I promise you, you can go ahead and take your revenge." The desolate, devouring heaven beast nodded its black head, and its naive look made Su-yi smile in his heart. Who would have thought that such a huge demonic beast that could devour heaven's earth could turn into such an adorable and delicate appearance? "You said that I'm your master. Have you seen your master?" Su-yi squatted down and stared at the desolate, devouring heaven beast. Turning around, the desolate, devouring heaven beast heaved a sigh of relief and sat down on the ground. The demonic aura around his body started to circulate slowly, and he actually started to heal himself. Lei Yun's shining eyes kept blinking, and he said in a muffled voice, "I've only seen Master's appearance, although it's not quite the same as you. But I know what Master's aura is like. You have it too. You are the Master. There's no mistake about it." The desolate, engulfing, heaven-shocking beast's eyes narrowed. As it spoke, it moved closer to Su-yi. Such a strange answer caused Su-yi to frown. This desolation, engulfing heavenly beast that was hard to come by in 10,000 years actually spoke so preposterously. Just based on this, it had acknowledged him as its master? Speaking of which, could it be that his luck had overturned the heavens? No matter how Su-yi thought about it, he still felt like he was in a dream to be able to pick up such a great ancient demon at the 9th tier of the demon domain for no reason. "Why don't you tell me about your past? How did you meet your master?" The slightly tired Su-yi took the opportunity to sit cross-legged beside the desolate, engulfing, heaven-shocking beast. Forming a hand seal, Su-yi started to circulate the Origin Supreme technique. Suddenly, he realized that the aura around the desolate, engulfing, heaven-shocking beast seemed to be resonating with him, and it also started to erupt with a turbulent heavenly might. This caused Su-yi to be shocked again. 10,000 years ago, the Sky Barbarian mainland was a desolate land. Great ancient demons gathered everywhere, and demonic aura was everywhere. Heroes fought for supremacy, and I was just a small stone, dark and swarthy. I was never liked by the great demons. Even ordinary wolf demons and tiger demons could find a place to belong, but I only had the fate of being bullied. As it spoke, the desolate, engulfing, heaven-shocking beast seemed to have mentioned something sad. Its pitch-black body trembled slightly, and it looked extremely strange. Su-yi sighed secretly. This was the logic of the strong staying strong and the weak staying weak. It was a truth that could not be escaped in any era. What happened after that? Su-yi's gaze became much gentler. He looked at the desolate, engulfing, heaven-shocking beast as if he was looking at his own younger brother or sister. After that, I found a stone. It shone brightly and shone brilliantly. At first, I thought it was just for fun. Later, I realized that it contained an extremely large amount of heaven and earth energy. Later on, it could actually release energy. Because of this, my demonic aura kept increasing. My body kept growing bigger, and my cultivation kept increasing. At this point, the desolate devouring heavenly beast's eyes were filled with shock. It continued. Slowly, I felt that it was intentionally or unintentionally guiding me in a certain direction. It was because of it that I became strong. So, I followed this little golden stone all the way. In the end, I entered a valley that looked like an altar. The golden dragon and phoenix were there too. Spirit sacrifice abyss. Suyi's eyes lit up. A layer of goosebumps appeared on his back, and his throat started to churn. The desolate engulfing heaven shocking beast tilted its head and looked at Su-yi doubtfully. It said, "So this is the name of that place?" "That's right." When we arrived there, the golden stone suddenly released a vast aura. Master's aura instantly filled the sky. It was as if only Master's heavenly might existed in the sky and on the ground. The 12 divine beasts also rushed out from the abyss. That was the first time I saw Master. At that moment, I was sure that he was my master. After a long time, the desolate engulfing heaven-shocking beast's heart was still shaken. After calming down, the desolate engulfing heaven-shocking beast continued to speak. Master told the divine beasts about how he lived in the heaven-suppressing divine artifact and joined the heaven barbarians before he died. He asked the divine beasts to help him return to the demon emperor's realm. The desolate engulfing heaven-shocking beast said seriously. Su-yi nodded. This was more or less the same as what the Iceland and the black tortoise said. His voice started to become hurried. He said, "Then how can we go back?" Master said that the heaven-suppressing divine artifact had already merged with his body. He still needed to find the 4 heaven-suppressing stones of earth, water, wind, and fire. As long as he could gather the 4 heaven-suppressing stones, the Bell of Chaos would completely reappear in the world. The successor of the Demon Emperor would obtain the Demon Emperor's inheritance. He would be able to kill his way back to the Demon Emperor's realm and take back everything. Chapter 2282. And this golden heaven-suppressing stone was obtained by the Demon Emperor's master by chance. When he was about to die, he threw it into the sky barbarian world. The desolate devouring heavenly beast recalled the scene and explained in detail. However, when he heard this, Su-yi's heart was already filled with excitement, especially when he heard about the 4 heaven-suppressing stones of earth, water, wind, and fire. Su-yi's heart instantly boiled. All the strange things about the mysterious space coincidentally proved that the primordial chaos ancient bell was a heaven-suppressing divine artifact. The 4 spirit springs existed within the light of the primordial chaos ancient bell. Didn't that mean that the 4 heaven-suppressing stones were originally embedded in the primordial chaos ancient bell? However, Su-yi still didn't know why the primordial chaos ancient bell had the attributes of earth, water, wind, and fire. Thinking of this, Su-yi's heart was filled with shock. There was no doubt that he was the Chaos Demon Emperor. Boy, your origin is so mysterious. Chi Fei-hong was extremely surprised. He licked his dry lips and looked at Su-yi again with incomparable respect and fear in his eyes. The Chaos Demon Emperor, the master of all demons, so you are very good. The Iron Soulfish's voice slowly came out from the entrance. Just as Su-yi was about to reply, the Iron Soulfish disappeared again. These days, the Iron Soulfish's reactions were becoming more and more abnormal. It also spoke less and less. Unknowingly, this became a burden on Su-yi's mind. However, Su-yi didn't have time to think about the Iron Soulfish. Everything that happened back then? Did the Demon Emperor say anything else about what happened back then? Su-yi suppressed the churning thoughts in his heart and continued to ask the desolate devouring heavenly beast, "Master, you should know what happened after that." The golden dragon and the phoenix split their remnant souls and looked for the fated person in the sky barbarian world. They wanted to find the Demon Emperor's successor and help the Demon Emperor find the heaven-suppressing stone. They wanted to kill their way back to the Demon Emperor's realm. And because of the water heaven-suppressing stone, The primordial chaos ancient bell was formed and entered the spirit's sacrifice abyss. The divine beast believed that he was the chaos demon emperor. Su-yi sighed. Unfortunately, the divine beast's remnant souls had weakened. Before he could finish, the remnant soul of the divine beast had already dissipated. What happened in the demon peacock emperor's realm back then? Su-yi looked at the desolation engulfing heavenly beast. The shocking heavenly beast shook its head and said softly, "When the golden dragon and the phoenix left, I also left the abyss. The golden dragon and the phoenix told me to take the heaven-suppressing gold stone and travel all over the heaven barbarian continent. Many years later, I thought I had found a fated person, so I passed the heaven-suppressing golden stone to him. We even founded the Sky Wind Martial Pavilion together to develop human martial arts, allowing more and more people to find the other heaven-suppressing stones." Suddenly, Su-yi exploded. Waves after waves of emotions surged in his heart. He said in a low voice, "You actually founded the Tianfeng Martial Pavilion, and the Tianfeng Martial Pavilion exists to find the other 4 heaven suppression stones." Thinking of this, Su-yi shook his head and smiled helplessly. Speaking of which, all the human martial artists in the world should be grateful to the desolate, devouring heaven beast. However, the human martial artists who were supposed to find the heaven-suppressing stone were fighting endlessly for the heaven-suppressing stone. Life is full of surprises indeed. It's a small world indeed. Su-yi touched the desolate, devouring heaven beast's head. It was still a little prickly. He said softly, "So when the 5 aristocratic families attacked, you swallowed half of the Tianfeng Martial Pavilion to protect it? No wonder you hate the Long family so much." Su-yi nodded and muttered. The desolate, devouring heaven beast touched its head embarrassedly. Its thick stone arms were a little cute. "Master, now that I, Tuntin, am by your side, those despicable humans will definitely be killed. Master, I will help you kill your way back to the demon peacock emperor's realm and achieve great merit." The desolate, devouring heaven beast laughed. Achieve great merit? Su-yi's heart was filled with questions. Even if he knew that he was the successor of the demon peacock emperor, he still needed to find the earth, water, wind, and fire heaven-suppressing stones in order to fully activate the chaos ancient bell, according to what the demon peacock emperor had left behind. The gold heaven-suppressing stone followed the demon peacock emperor to the sky barbarian realm. As for the water heaven-suppressing stone, he found it from the Leaf family. Where are the other 3? It could be in the sky barbarian realm or in the extraterritorial realm. It's hard to say. Chi Fei-hong frowned slightly. His dim yellow eyes rolled around. If it was really in the extraterritorial realm, this path would be very difficult. The great immemorial calamity and the demon peacock emperor's wedding before the storm all hid earth-shattering secrets. Find it. Find it wherever it is. For me and for the demon peacock emperor. Su-yi made up his mind and said to the desolate, devouring heaven beast, "Tuntin, since you have recognized me as your master, follow me from now on. Now that the people of the Divine Tiger sect have escaped, we have to quickly chase after them." Hearing this, Tuntin's azure blue eyes welled up with tears. He nodded and said, "Okay, okay." With that, his small body quickly climbed up and moved his round body to the other side of the dark space. He said to Su-yi, "Master, wait a moment." Suddenly, the sound of wind whistling in the space was heard. An extremely powerful energy wind was stirred up from Tuntin's body. A force that could destroy the world wrapped around the desolate, devouring heaven beast's fist and smashed it into the ground with all its might. Boom! In an instant, the earth shook and the mountains shook. The world roared. In the dark space, an extremely vast spiritual aura of the world surged down from the 9 heavens. The ferocious shockwave directly smashed the ground under his feet into pieces. After the sonic boom resounded, smoke and dust flew everywhere. Then, the energy of the world suddenly became extremely violent. An extremely large energy beam shot out from the depths of the earth. Wong! Su-yi looked over and raised his head to look at the light that surged up. Waves of emotions had already surfaced in his heart. Following the explosion of energy, a kind of energy that could make one's soul tremble, filled the surroundings. Looking carefully within the light, there was actually a glowing vine with mysterious runes that was constantly growing. As the light became more and more intense, the vine also grew leaves and branches. The huge pressure made one's soul tremble. Newborn spiritual herbs broke out from the ground. In the crazily surging ball of energy, the spiritual herbs that were constantly growing were crystal clear. Their distinct veins surged with a strange radiance. They swayed gently in the dark space, but they seemed so fragile. He began to have an answer in his heart. He immediately used the primeval chaos ancient bell. Chi Fei Hong floated out from the bell and immediately took out the heavenly glass stamen flower receptacle from the martial pavilion ruins. Creak! The desolate, devouring heaven beast pulled out the heavenly glass stamen flower receptacle from the ground. Rolling energy erupted from its body and tightly wrapped around the stem of the heavenly glass stamen flower receptacle. At the same time, the heavenly glass stamen flower receptacle in Chi Fei Hong's hand floated out from his hand. It fell below the heavenly glass stamen flower receptacle as if it was being pulled. The two merged into one. Chapter 2283. TSK. Light patterns surged, and an overwhelming medicinal fragrance instantly filled the entire dark space. The incomparably dense energy of heaven and earth illuminated the sky, as if it was cleansing everything in the world. At this moment, the entire void was filled with a strange light that was incomparably mysterious. Above the sky, thunderclouds surged and the heavens rumbled. The dark space was also as bright as day in an instant. Rolling and roaring thunderbolts crazily extended above the void, and the pitch-black space was filled with pitch-black cracks. The ferocious and majestic aura indicated that the ancient spiritual herb, the heavenly glass stamen, was about to be born. Chila! As the last thunderbolt struck down, the heavenly glass stamen finally took shape amidst the light. The enchanting branches and leaves swayed continuously in the air. They were bright and translucent, like a piece of high-quality ancient jade. They were moist and silky, and there were traces of mystical light refracting from them. The mysterious light formed a vortex under the stamen, constantly releasing a vast amount of spiritual energy. It made one's heart tremble and one's eyes turn solemn. One had to know that this was an ancient spiritual herb that could only be seen once every 10,000 years. Lightning flashed brilliantly, and the divine clouds were like a huge net that covered the sky. Is this the real heavenly glass stamen? He was extremely excited as he looked at the desolation devouring heaven beast in the distance. Tuntun's eyes suddenly turned sharp, and her face turned cold. Her black hands suddenly moved in front of her, and demonic aura soared into the sky. A flood of energy carefully wrapped around the heavenly glass stamen. After half a breath, after some resistance, the heavenly glass stamen finally succumbed and shrunk until it was only the size of a palm. Tuntun then kept it in her arms. Huff! Tuntun let out a long sigh. It seemed that such fine control of demonic aura was also a burden for the big ancient demon. Holding the heavenly glass stamen in her hands, Tuntun ran excitedly towards Sui. Master, Tuntun doesn't have any gift for you. This is the heavenly glass stamen that the kid from the sky, wind, martial pavilion planted back then. Tuntun will give it to you today to show my respect for you. Tuntun's eyes sparkled. Her words made Sui even more excited. It was really a case of searching high and low for something, only to find it by chance. Who would have thought that the heavenly glass stamen was planted by the sky wind martial pavilion? Now that Tuntun had followed him, he didn't have to search the continent for it. Then why is it divided into two parts? Sui opened the primordial ancient bell and Chi Feihong hurriedly helped to plant the heavenly glass stamens into the spiritual field. At that time, in the Martial Pavilion ruins, he was surrounded by dangers. The Tian Xiangrui confused his mind, and it took a lot of twists and turns to subdue the flower receptacle of the Tian Xiangrui. Su Su Su. Su Tung Chi Su Chi Tung. When the heavenly glass stone was passed to the first pavilion master of the sky, Wind Martial Pavilion, the pavilion master found the heavenly glass stamen for Su Yi. But the heavenly glass stamen was divided into two parts, the pistil body and the flower body, which had the effect of awakening the soul and illusion the soul. It could help Su Yi cleanse his divine soul and control his mind. Therefore, when the 5 great families started to attack the Sky Wind Martial Pavilion, the desolation-devouring heaven beast took the heavenly glass stamen away. After finding the dark space, Su Yi separated the pistil body and the flower body. The pistil body was planted in the dark space to help Su Yi control his mind. The flower receptacle, which had the ability to create illusions, was hidden in a small space that he had created. If someone really managed to break into the Tianfeng Martial Pavilion and was able to withstand the flower receptacle's illusionary soul attack, he would have found another fated person and could entrust these matters to him. I see. You knew I had the Golden Dragon bloodline, so you didn't attack me directly. Instead, you swallowed me directly. Su Yi suddenly understood. Su Yi watched as Chi Feihong planted the heavenly glass stamen in the spiritual field. Instantly, the medicinal fragrance became stronger, and the energy swept out like a spiritual snake. Ho! A medium-sized energy storm poured out, mixed with the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. It circulated endlessly, giving off an ancient vibe. Su Yi pondered for a while, then took out 10 bottles of spiritual liquid from the primordial ancient bell and gave them to the desolation-devouring heaven beast. As the saying goes, there's always a return. The value of the spiritual liquid was even higher than the heavenly glass stamen. After receiving the spiritual liquid, Su Yi once again examined the primordial chaos ancient bell in front of him. Traces of dense and mysterious light runes were entwined around it, and its aura was rising crazily like a hot knife through butter. Looking at it from afar, it was as if one's heart was bathed in holy light, pure and holy. What kind of secret is hidden behind the primordial ancient bell? Su Yi thought to himself. The secret of the spiritual pool in the primordial ancient bell had been revealed. It was the symbol of the 4 heaven-suppressing stones. However, would the spiritual liquid have a mysterious origin? Let's go. The truth will come out one day. Su Yi looked at the desolation-devouring heaven beast and Dugayuma, and the corner of his mouth curled up. Immediately, the few of them left the dark space. In the deep sea, Su Yi's eyes shone with a cold light. Only Hu Qi of the Divine Tiger sect had escaped. Judging from the aura left in the deep sea, Hu Qi had escaped to the Divine Tiger continent in the northeast. Hu Qi was involved in the bloody case on the Demon Mountain. This matter had become a knot in Su Yi's heart for a long time. Now that he had found the murderer and killed Spear Ghost, Hu Qi must not be let go. Su Yi, who had wanted to go to the Chaos Realm from the Sky Sea City, decided to go through the Sky Sea City and pursue Hu Qi. Let's go. Hu Qi is more important. Let's put the other matters aside first. Su Yi said coldly. In the sea, after Tuntin stopped breathing in the dark space, the deep-sea whirlpool in the sea had disappeared, and it was easier to detect the aura. Someone is coming. Tuntin looked into the distance. Suddenly, a tyrannical aura rippled and spread out like lightning. It was Lan Huanglian, who had come from the Sky Sea City. At the edge of the light screen, pitch-black spatial cracks swept out like a storm. Are you all okay? That's great. Lan Huanglian heaved a sigh of relief and said. In the middle of the light screen, Lan Huanglian looked at Su Yi anxiously. The latter's eyes were cold and even had a hint of coldness. He did not reply. Lan Huanglian looked around and saw that there was a piece of black metal with a terrifying aura beside Dugayuma. Lan Huanglian immediately went to Dugayuma and said, Yuma, you are out. I am relieved. Lan Huanglian sighed, and her crescent brows frowned slightly. Dugi Yuma said awkwardly, yes. Yes, I entered the deep sea without permission and caused trouble for sister. Chapter 2284. After saying that, Dugu Yuma lowered his head. He knew that the situation was very awkward, so he didn't say anything else. This time, Sky Sea City was too unpredictable. First, they asked Su Yi to help them find support. Then, they told the Long family about Su Yi's whereabouts, almost causing Su Yi to be buried in Sky Sea City forever. If it was anyone else, this would be a blood feud that touched their bottom line. Su Yi didn't immediately find Sky Sea City to settle the score, which was already very generous. Sensing that their attitudes were completely different from before, Lon Balian smiled awkwardly. Looking around, Lon Balian's eyes faintly drifted to the black iron beast beside Su Yi. The lightning that seeped out of its thundercloud eyes made Lon Balian's heart tighten. The destructive energy that Tunton released surged in the air, and the surrounding space became illusory. Lon Balian knew that this was a super great demon. It was definitely the Sea City giant beast that Sky Sea City coveted. The sea current surged, and killing intent surged. In the deep sea region, the cold and gloomy sea water couldn't hide the boundless killing intent on Su Yi's body. What's wrong with Yuma? What happened? Lon Balian lowered her voice and looked at Dugi Yuma. Suddenly, Su Yi's back was facing Lon Balian. His pitch-black eyes shone as he said coldly, "Let's go. There's no point in talking to a lowly person. Su, if I did anything wrong, you can tell me. If Sky Sea City is in the wrong, I can take responsibility," Lon Balian said anxiously. "You can't take responsibility for anything. Go back and tell Yi that I, Su Yi, will remember what Sea City did today." Su Yi said, "What about Yuma and this expert? It's our Sea City's totem, right?" Lon Balian had already guessed Ebon's identity, and her heart was in turmoil. Roar! In the entire sky, the wind and clouds surged. At this moment, it was as if a desolate god had descended. Huge ripples spread out from the dark tide. Thunder rumbled in the air, and the roars of the desolate, devouring heaven-shocking beasts shook the heavens. The sea currents stretched out like tentacles towards the surroundings of the blue rainflower ripple. Lon Yelian's expression changed drastically. She raised her head abruptly and stared at the desolate, devouring heaven beast and Su Yi in shock. The tides surged, and the sea region went berserk. The great demon in front of him was the guardian of Sea City. For the past 10,000 years, Sea City had been safe and sound under the protection of this great demon. But now, the attentive Lon Balian smelled an indescribable feeling amidst the frenzy. The scene in front of her was like an ancient demon descending upon heaven and earth. Lon Linglian could see that the boundless violent energy contained a trace of restraint. The desolate, engulfing, heavenly beast in front of her was waiting for Su Yi to speak. "Little girl, you undersea humans have been looking for me for so many years, but I've been too lazy to deal with you. But if you dare to harm my master, I will spare no effort to bombard your underwater castle." Tunton stared fiercely with its ferocious eyes and spoke viciously. Its vicious aura soared to the sky, and its killing intent was awe-inspiring. Suddenly, a huge amount of energy poured out and pressed down on Lon Yelian's body. "Chila!" Lon Yelian observed the changes in front of her, and her heart was already filled with shock. Su Yi was the master of the desolate, engulfing, heaven-shocking beast. How is this possible? Lon Yelian widened her eyes. When she looked up again, the ferocious beast's soul suppression caused her mind to tremble. When she looked around again, the desolate, engulfing, heaven-shocking beast had turned into a huge black metal beast. It was carrying Su Yi and Dugi Yuma towards the northeast. Its aura was extremely shocking. After watching the black light disappear for a long time, the energy in Lon Yelian's body gradually relaxed. Suddenly, the space felt as though everything had returned to normal. The surroundings gradually calmed down, but Lan Yulian's heart was filled with great waves. Why was Su Yi's attitude so cold-blooded? On the back of the desolate engulfing heaven-shocking beast, Dugayuma, who had always been gentle to her, didn't seem to want them to stay? What exactly did Sky Sea City do to Su Yi? Uhu! Everything immediately calmed down. Lan Yulian's entire body emitted a blue light, and a clear, cold light appeared in her deep, jet-black eyes, like the stars in the night sky. She pursed her lips and rushed towards Sky Horizon Sea City. What? Su Yi is out. When Yi heard Lan Yulian's words, her emotions instantly tensed up like a spring. A trace of undetectable fear appeared on her usually calm face. Su Yi had come out, and he even brought the desolate engulfing heaven-shocking beast with him. This meant that the Long family's plan to capture him had failed. As for the Long family, the Sky Dragon sect, and the Divine Tiger sect, she still hadn't seen them. Could it be that Su Yi had taken care of them? Thinking up to this point, Yi's wrinkle-free forehead gradually filled with fine beads of sweat. She sat in the supreme, everlasting palace and thought to herself, "The fish soldiers told me that the Long family had been here. Did you tell them about Su Yi's whereabouts? On the way here, how could a smart person like Lan Yulian not have investigated clearly?" She knew that even if she asked, Yi wouldn't tell her the truth. Lan Yulian might as well tell her the result of her guess. Instead, she would be able to find out the truth of the matter. "Is this your attitude towards your teacher?" Yi opened her beautiful eyes, and her expression was filled with coldness as she stared at Lan Yulian. In an instant, Lan Yulian's lips curled slightly. Facing her teacher, Lan Yulian no longer bowed and bent her knees. Instead, she questioned her sharply. "You can't blame the Lord of Heaven for this matter. Su Yi has the water-suppressing heavenly stone. Once Su Yi fails, the Long family will stir up trouble. At that time, we will fall out with Su Yi. The Lord of Heaven is thinking about the big picture." Ing Wuxiu slowly walked out of the bubble. His pale face showed that he was in a terrible mood. He glanced at the Lord of Heaven and walked to Lan Yulian's side, indicating for her to relax. Lan Yulian looked at Ing Wuxiu, but her attitude didn't soften at all. Thinking about Dugayuma and Su Yi's attitude, Lan Yulian felt that she had become a treacherous villain for the first time. She reprimanded angrily. "So, you're blaming me? If you want to blame me, I shouldn't have brought Su Yi to see you. Now that the Long family is in trouble in Tianlan Sea City, Su Yi has a grudge with Tianlan Sea City, and Sea City's backer has followed Su Yi. We've even offended the Myriad Sword Alliance." Lan Yulian's thoughts were clear. Her gaze was like a cold sword as she looked at Ing Wuxiu and Yi. When they heard about the Myriad Sword Alliance, Yi and Ing Wuxiu's eyes flickered. Ing Wuxiu patted Lan Yulian's shoulder and said softly, "I'll explain to Su Yi. The Sea City behemoth hasn't cooperated with Sea City for tens of thousands of years. As for the Myriad Sword Alliance, don't worry. We have our own plans." "Our own plans?" Lan Yulian's gaze changed. She looked at Yi and Ing Wuxiu, whom she was familiar with in the past, and shook her head. Chapter 2285. At that moment, Lan Balian felt like she was an outsider. She was kept in the dark about everything. The betrayal and deception caused Lan Balian's heart to be in a mess. On one hand, it was friendship and righteousness. On the other hand, it was because of her master. This was a difficult choice. Sea City's 10,000 years of foundation will be decided by the masters themselves. I don't want to stay in Sea City during this period of time. Please don't come looking for me if anything happens," Lan Balian said. A look of determination appeared in Lan Rillian's eyes. Soon after, her gaze fell on Yi as she solemnly said, "My good master." His footsteps continued to retreat. After taking 10 steps back, he finally turned around and walked out of the everlasting palace. A blue light appeared under her feet. She sped up and disappeared in an instant. "Come back here." A hint of reluctance appeared in Yi's throat, but she didn't actually stop Lan Balian. Yi sat down in a daze when she was sure that Lan Balian had left Wuji Hall. Slumped against the back of the chair, Yi furrowed her brows and remained silent for a long time. The cold light in Yi's eyes didn't disappear. It was as if she was trying to protect her last dignity. We've completely offended Su-yi. Ing Wuxiu smiled bitterly at Yi. Yi pouted and said stubbornly, "Do you think I'm wrong too?" Ing Wuxiu shook his head and put his hand on Yi's shoulder. Right or wrong doesn't depend on the choice. It depends on the result. But no matter which side wins, can you accept the result of the victory? Yi finally let out a sigh of relief. She overlapped her palm with Ing Wuxiu's and said in a low voice, "Su-yi has taken away our pillar of support. We have no one else to rely on. We don't want the Long family to win, but we can't let Su-yi win. I don't want it to be like this." Ing Wuxiu's eyes narrowed. A hint of helplessness flashed in his eyes. Then Sea City will suffer. The Holy Mountain is a lesson. Soon, Sky Dragon Sect and Divine Tiger Sect will suffer. Sea City will have to take action, Yi said calmly. Ing Wuxiu was silent for a while, before he finally nodded and said to Yi, "Then I'll go to the Long family. We can only participate in the Myriad Sword Alliance's plan. I only wish Su-yi the best of luck." Yi turned her head, her eyes filled with deep affection. She glanced at the vast sea behind her and became extremely stern. "Xiaoge, you understand me, right?" Yi seemed to be looking for a soulmate, a reason to support herself. The corner of Ing Wuxiu's mouth twitched. His breath was weak and haggard. He said, "Thousand Miles Pagoda, karmic fire hell. No matter what, we must not let this fire reach Tianlan City. Taking advantage of the fact that Su-yi hasn't made a move yet is our best chance. Let's hope we can get the best of both worlds." As soon as he finished his sentence, the blue bubbles around him started to surge. The ripples were so dense that they shot out and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. In a split second, a cold and bleak atmosphere spread throughout the supreme, everlasting palace, and Yi's gaze became even colder. Without using the teleportation point in Tianlan City, Su-yi followed Hu Qi's aura all the way from Tianlan City to the Chaos Territory, then from the Chaos Territory to Zhongzhou. Along the way, Su-yi, the desolate devouring heavenly beast, and Dugayuma increased their speed to the maximum. Everywhere they passed by, there were cracks in the air like a spider web. When the three of them arrived in the sky above Zhongzhou, countless martial artists on the streets stopped and looked up. As such a terrifying aura arrived, countless shocked gazes were cast towards the sky. The red, black, and blue auras shone brightly as the heavenly might pressed down on the sky. The monstrous aura surged violently, as if it was about to shatter the void. Whoosh! The whole place was in an uproar. Countless people on the streets swallowed their saliva. There were even martial artists who looked terrified. When Su-yi stopped in the sky, Dugayuma, who was barely able to keep up with him, asked curiously, "Why did you stop?" "Here, the aura disappeared. It should have been teleported away from here." Su-yi frowned, and a cold, killing intent shot out from the depths of his pupils. Dugayuma looked around, his blue crystal double moon eyes carefully sizing up the surroundings. As Su-yi said, he did not feel the slightest presence of Hu Qi's aura. "Then are we going to Divine Tiger Sect?" Dugayuma looked at Su-yi. In order to escape, would Hu Qi directly escape back to Divine Tiger Sect? Su-yi shook his head, looked at the martial artist below, and said to the two, "If Hu Qi really wanted to lead me to Divine Tiger Sect, he would not have escaped for so long before teleporting away from Zhongzhou." Along the way, Hu Qi first escaped from Tianlan Sea, and then passed through the Chaos Territory. Why was it so troublesome? No matter how Su-yi thought about it, Hu Qi's goal was to shake off Su-yi and the others as much as he could, then find a place to heal himself so that he could easily sneak back to Divine Tiger Sect and pretend that nothing had happened. Now that he had escaped back to Divine Tiger Sect, Su-yi would immediately arrive, and for the Divine Tiger Sect who was secretly chasing Su-yi, it would give Su-yi a reason to destroy Divine Tiger Sect. Hu Qi knew that if he returned to Divine Tiger Sect now, he would not be able to escape the fate of being killed by Shangguan Juo. After all, Hu Qi was the culprit of the Demon Mountain. Divine Tiger Sect and Sky Dragon Sect were deeply involved with the Long family, and Hu-Chi knew how many dirty things they had done. Compared to his son being killed and betraying the Long family, Divine Tiger Sect being destroyed was a blow that Shangguan Juahu could not bear, so Divine Tiger Sect would definitely not protect Hu-Chi at this time. Hu-Chi could only find a place to hide. Then where can he go? Tunton nodded in agreement. Soon after, the three of them left Continent Center City, retracted their auras, and landed in a dense forest outside the city. Slowly walking out of the dense forest, Su-Yi had the desolate, swallowing heavenly beast change its shape until it shrunk into a palm-sized ball and put it in his bosom, then slowly said, "Continent Center Transmission Station has records of all the transmission stations in the city. We will know when we check. Your aura is too terrifying. Although you are hiding in my bosom, you can't go berserk as you wish after entering the city." Su-Yi smiled as he stroked the desolate, swallowing heavenly beast in his bosom. Compared to its previous eyes that was almost larger than the entire Continent Center City, the current Tunton was extremely cute. After saying this, Su-Yi and Dugayuma entered Continent Center City like two normal young martial artists. When Su-Yi entered Continent Center City, he could immediately feel that Continent Center City was completely different from before. Along the way, the martial artist's eyes were firm, the shops were in great numbers, and the bad habits of the Sacred Mountain had disappeared without a trace. Immediately, Su-Yi had a lot of praise for the Sacred Mountain City under the management of Snow Red House. Chapter 2286. Just as Su-Yi and Dugayuma were about to go to the teleportation point in the city to ask, a fresh wave of aura came from beside them. A figure suddenly appeared beside Su-Yi. The desolation-devouring heaven beast in his arms suddenly opened its mouth and roared angrily, startling the newcomer. Su-Yi looked at the startled cultivator, and the corner of his mouth curled up. Soon after, he looked coldly at the newcomer. The newcomer's skin was as smooth as ice, and she wore a light purple dress. Even with a veil covering her face, she still had an indescribable, mysterious temperament. Her eyes overflowed with spirituality like the moonlight on the sea, causing one's heart to flutter. Do the people of Sky Sea City like to pester people? Su-Yi rolled his eyes. It turned out that the newcomer was Lon Balian, who had chased after him from Sky Sea City. Su-Yi, you have to give others a chance to explain, right? If I did it, I will admit it. If I didn't do it, how can you blame your friend? Lon Balian's gaze fell on Su-Yi and Dugayuma. She pursed her lips tightly and was a little indignant. Su-Yi sneered and immediately called out to Dugayuma. He continued to walk forward and look straight ahead. At this point, what does it matter if you did or not? Anyway, when the time comes, I will settle the score with Sea City. When you master Yi did those stupid things, which side will you side with? Lon Balian frowned. Yi had asked her the same question before. Lon Balian didn't understand why she had to choose. I will not help either side. I will help whichever side is right. Lon Balian was fuming as she walked to Dugayuma's side. The latter smiled helplessly at Lon Balian's answer. Su-Yi laughed and used his hand to stroke Tunton's head. Tunton's eyes were drooping, and it didn't want to look at Lon Balian. The dignified fairy of Sky Sea City actually speaks so childishly, Su-Yi said lazily. Since he was in a hurry to chase after Hu-Chi, how could he have the time to listen to Lon Balian's explanation? In fact, Su-Yi didn't have any intention of blaming Lon Balian. It was better that Lon Balian didn't chase after him. This way, when the time came to settle the score, Su-Yi could be even more reckless. Then you have to give me a chance to make it up to you, right? Let me make up for the Heavenly Monarch's mistake. Lon Balian pulled Dugayuma's arm and reprimanded in a low voice. There's no chance. Follow me if you want. Su-Yi strode toward the teleportation station with a deep look in his eyes. Soon, they arrived at the main transmission station. At this time, cultivators had gathered, all dressed in Sacred Mountain attire, waiting respectfully near the main transmission station. Su-Yi and the others stopped in their tracks. Lon Shalian said softly. What's going on? Did anyone from a sacred mountain come today? Let's observe the situation first. Su Yi's eyes narrowed as he shrugged and looked ahead. Since there were people from the sacred mountain, it was impossible to check the records in such a short time. Following the crowd, Su Yi, Dugayumal, and Lon Balian sneaked into the main transmission station from the back of the crowd. Once they entered, they were greeted with an overwhelming amount of crystal energy. The interior of the main transmission station today was dazzling with gold and jade. The entire room was filled with spiritual energy that made one's skin and meridians feel relaxed. There was an extraordinary feeling coming from both inside and outside. Inside the main hall, there was a crowd of people. Those standing were the experts from the Sacred Mountain Academy and the Sacred Mountain who were stationed in Central Continent City. Su Yi wanted to inquire, but he saw that everyone's expression was solemn and fearful. He wanted to say something, but no one bothered with him. No one bothered with us. I only heard them saying that it's the first time and there can't be any mistakes. Lon Balian came back from scouting and looked at Su Yi with a pout. Hearing this, Su Yi raised his chin slightly and muttered in his heart. This kind of ostentatious display was quite impressive. Could it be that under the control of the Snow Red House, there were still those fake experts from the Sacred Mountain? Swish! Standing behind the crowd, Su Yi, Lon Balian, and the others suddenly felt the teleportation crystal in the main hall light up. Spatial ripples flickered and soon covered the entire main hall. Instantly, the densely packed space above the main hall was filled with the energy of heaven and earth, gradually releasing a majestic vitality. Facing this kind of vitality, Su Yi was not surprised. Instead, Tuntin, who was in his arms, began to grimace and open her eyes wide to look around. It was as if she had seen an old acquaintance, which made Su Yi slightly surprised. Tuntin, what's wrong with you? Su Yi lowered his voice and stared at Tuntin. Tuntin's eyes only rippled, but she did not speak. As soon as he spoke, dozens of figures appeared near the teleportation crystal. Standing at the front was a man who was not even 30 years old. He had a thin figure and gave off an air of confidence as he slowly walked out. Greetings, Sacred Emperor Shui. Greetings, Sacred Emperor Shui. Greetings, Sacred Emperor Shui. When the surrounding people saw who had come, they all prostrated themselves on the ground. They were extremely respectful and shouted excitedly. Hearing such voices, Su Yi and Lon Balian suddenly realized that this was the first time the new Sacred Emperor of the Xiahong House had come to Zhongzhou City for an inspection. Immediately, when everyone saw the Xiahong House walk out, they all gasped. The aura that he exuded was ethereal and handsome, and his aura was majestic. The invisible pressure made people not dare to look at him directly. I was wondering who it was. So it's the Xiahong House. Su Yi crossed his arms and said with a smirk. In the solemn main hall, Su Yi's voice was particularly piercing. Everyone present knelt on the ground except for Su Yi, Lon Balian, and Dugayumal, the three onlookers who were standing. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on Su Yi. There was fear, surprise, and most of them were cold. How dare you? Who are you? How dare you not kneel when you see Sacred Emperor Shui? What arrogance! Where did this arrogant brat come from? Sacred Emperor Shui, this person snuck in. When the leading expert of the Sacred Mountain heard someone say such words, he was so frightened that his face turned ashen. Immediately, countless onlookers began to point at Su Yi's nose and scold him. They did not know where this arrogant brat came from, but he dared to call the Xiahong House by his name in public. Countless shocked gazes filled the air. Several majestic sacred ruler chi instantly surged around the Xiahong House. Seeing the cold Xiahong House notice them, the onlookers' mouths twitched for no reason. They looked at Su Yi with pitiful gazes. They really did not know where this arrogant brat came from, coming here to play to the gallery. The crowd quickly opened up a path for the Xiahong House. With a tall and straight figure, the sacred ruler Qi opened up a path. The handsome Xiahong House narrowed his eyes and quickly walked to Su Yi's side. When he noticed the two people beside him, the Xiahong House's pupils dilated, and he immediately revealed a warm smile. I was wondering who it was. So it's you, the king of geniuses, the Xiahong House said slowly. Ha ha! Immediately, the two looked at each other and laughed. They opened their arms and hugged each other tightly. Chapter 2287. In an instant, everyone present was petrified as they looked at Su, Yi, and Zhonglu. The young man who suddenly appeared in front of them hugged Zhonglu. It seemed that the two were very familiar with each other. No, in an instant, when they recalled the words of Xiahong Pavilion, everyone's gazes towards Su, Yi became strange, and their pupils immediately widened and dilated. Who did the Holy Snow Emperor just call this young man? King. King of geniuses? I heard it very clearly. It's the king of geniuses. The young man who shocked the Sacred Martial Arts Assembly, massacred the Holy Mountain Academy, and finally conquered the Holy Mountain. The king of geniuses, Su Yi. Suddenly, everyone present looked at each other and began to whisper in the direction of Su, Yi, and Zhonglu. Their expressions suddenly became extremely terrifying. No one expected that the king of geniuses and the Holy Snow Emperor would come to Zhongzhou at the same time. Moreover, the king of geniuses was so young, even younger than everyone thought. Wow! Seeing how close the Holy Snow Emperor and Su Yi were, everyone present had already confirmed Su Yi's identity. The people who had not yet stood up lowered their heads even more. The sound of a tsunami once again boiled the air. In fact, the sound waves were even louder than before. The rolling pressure shook the air. The experts who were in fear and trepidation took the lead in shouting very loudly, their faces full of excitement. The king of geniuses, the new dean of the Holy Mountain Academy, Zhong Yiwu, greets the king of geniuses, the chief disciple of Elder Duanmu of the Holy Mountain Sacred Martial Hall. Shi Mofeng greets the king of geniuses. Master often talks about you. The guard captain of Zhongzhou, Yi, greets the king of geniuses. At this moment, everyone looked at Su Yi with fear and shock. Some of them were so excited that they fainted from fright. Those who had witnessed Su Yi's prowess in the Holy Mountain felt as if they had returned to the murderous atmosphere back then. Their eyes were filled with fear and excitement. The crowd was noisy and incoherent. Not much time had passed. Compared to the new Holy Emperor, the reputation of the King of Heaven's Pride was undoubtedly more resounding in the Central Continent, the Holy Mountain Academy, and the Holy Mountain. If the Saint Snow Emperor was a symbol of authority, then the King of Geniuses was a symbol of power. The name Su Yi was like a huge mountain pressing down on the experts of the Holy Mountain who used to flaunt their powerful connections, and like a great river irrigating the people of the Central Plains who had been exploited. Turning back to look at Dugi Yuma and Lan Yelyan, their expressions had already explained everything. They never thought that Su Yi would have such a glorious reputation in the Central State. Su Yi smiled bitterly and shook his head. It was as if he was saying that this was the reason why he didn't want to enter the Central Continent. Su Yi waved his hand, and Xiahong House's eyebrows turned cold again. He said to the crowd, "Everyone stop." Turning his head, Xiahong House patted Su Yi's shoulder. In his spiritual sense, Su Yi's incomparably powerful primordial chi feedback made Xiahong House's eyes flash with disbelief and surprise. Looking at Su Yi, who was as calm as water, Xiahong House smiled bitterly and shook his head. He quickly ordered the people around him, "Today's inspection of the Central State City is over. Everyone leave." Changing the topic, Xiahong House looked at Lan Yelyan and Dugi Yuma and said, "Xiahong House has not received you well. Sorry for not going out to welcome you. I didn't expect the Sword Immortal's disciple and the Sea City Fairy to visit. Welcome them together. This way, please." After saying that, Xiahong House stared at Su Yi, as if blaming Su Yi for bringing important guests to the Central State without greeting them. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, they left the main teleportation station. Before leaving, Su Yi whispered a few words to Xiahong House. Soon, The governor of the central state city went to handle it eagerly like a rabbit. In the largest inner room of the governor's mansion. "You brat, you didn't even greet us when you came to the central state." Xiahong House scolded him jokingly and looked at Su Yi. At this moment, Su Yi looked at Li Ling, who was beside Xiahong House, and the corners of his mouth curled up. "I can't compare with you. You're really carefree now. You're so ostentatious. And you even have a beautiful woman as your companion. It's a pity that I'm being hunted down every day." Xiahong House waved his hand and shook his head helplessly. He told Su Yi that since he had become the Saint Emperor, the old customs of the sacred mountain had to be broken. It was difficult to set up rules, but it was even more difficult to abide by them. From top to bottom, the entire central state and the 6 continents, all the branches of the sacred mountain had to be replaced. One could imagine how huge this project was. Sometimes, ostentatiousness was necessary. Su Yi, who was the sect leader of a super force, could empathize with the management experience of these sections. Li Ling, who was standing beside him, was gentle and well-behaved. After listening for a while, she smiled at Su Yi and walked to Lan Balian and Dugi Yuma's side to exchange pleasantries. After hearing Su Yi's words, Xiahong House frowned and said seriously, "Who's after you? Someone from the Long family?" In a split second, Xiahong House's boundless strength of the peak 9th level Origin Emperor realm burst out. The sharp Saint Ruler Qi instantly smashed the teacup on the table into powder. Su Yi sniffed as killing intent surged in between his eyebrows. He quickly told Xiahong House everything that had happened during this period of time. "The Long family is getting more and more rampant. It seems like the battle with Draconis is coming soon." Xiahong House slammed the table as endless killing intent flashed across his eyes. "Oh right, when did you reach the peak 9th level Origin Emperor realm?" Su Yi sensed Xiahong House's Origin Qi aura and felt that Xiahong House was only a step away from the Origin Ancestor realm. Xiahong House nodded and said, "After you left the sacred mountain, the energy of the gold heaven suppressing stone in my body was completely activated. My cultivation speed also increased rapidly. However, the Origin Ancestor realm is too far away. If I want to break through, I still need an opportunity. Gold heaven suppressing stone." Tuntin suddenly jumped out from Su Yi's arms. Xiahong House and Li Ling's eyes darkened at the sight of its round black iron body. "This is?" Xiahong House's eyes flashed with a strange look. Su Yi hurriedly explained Tuntin's background to Xiahong House. The desolate devouring heavenly beast quickly moved to Xiahong House's side and looked up and down. Its eyes gradually became moist. You don't remember me?" Tuntin asked anxiously. During the ancient times, the desolate devouring heavenly beast and the gold heaven suppressing stone depended on each other. That was the most unforgettable period for Tuntin. When the gold heaven suppressing stone was passed to the Sky Wind Martial Pavilion, Tuntin had never seen the gold heaven suppressing stone again. Since then, the gold heaven suppressing stone had wandered the mortal realm. After a long period of time, it had transformed into a human form and reincarnated as a human. Looking at Tuntin, Xiahong House's expression changed from doubtful to touched. Xiahong House said softly, "Familiar, but also not familiar." "Su Yi, who is this?" Tuntin also turned to look at Su Yi and suddenly burst into tears. She said while twitching nonstop, "Master, he actually doesn't remember me." Su Yi smiled and scratched his head. Such an extraordinary relationship was something that Su Yi couldn't explain in a short period of time. Chapter 2288. I'll explain the situation to you later. Su Yi smiled awkwardly. At this moment, the new Zhongzhou City Lord's aura shot out from outside the door. Before he arrived, his voice was as loud as a bell. Xiahong House, Su Yi, and the others quickly stood up. The Zhongzhou City Lord hurriedly reported. "Reporting to the King of Geniuses, reporting to the Holy Snow Emperor, we have found out where that thief was teleported to." Lan Linglian and Dugi Yuma looked at each other. No wonder Su Yi and Xiahong House were so relaxed. They had already made arrangements. Sui frowned and asked in a low voice, "Where was he teleported to?" Central Continent's city lord looked to his side. After making sure that there were no outsiders, he immediately said, "This thief's identity is special." After showing the family's command medallion, the transfer station's disciples don't need to record him. However, this humble one still went through untold hardships and finally found traces of this thief. Perhaps he wanted to take credit for it, but the Zhongzhou city lord purposely described the process in an extremely complicated way, which made everyone feel disgusted. Xiahong House immediately scolded. "Just say it. Where is he?" "The Taichin continent." Hearing the sacred snow emperor's words, the Zhongzhou city lord knelt on the ground, his body trembling. "The Taichin continent." Hearing these words, Sui frowned and his eyes turned cold. He stroked his chin and said softly, "He really knows how to choose a place." Xiahong House nodded and looked at Sui thoughtfully. She said lightly, "The Divine Tiger sect is in the Divine Tiger continent. However, in terms of geographical distribution, the Taichin continent is the closest to the Divine Tiger continent. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest place. If an ordinary person was running for their life, they would run in the opposite direction as far as they could. For a 1,000-year-old man like Hu Qi, the Taichin continent was undoubtedly a safer and smarter choice. Firstly, it was easy to hide. Secondly, even if he was really surrounded, his forces in the Divine Tiger sect could arrive immediately. After analyzing the situation, everyone immediately decided to head to the Taichin continent. Sui looked at the Xiahong House and smiled. "Thanks to you. Let's head to the Taichin continent now." "What do you mean? You're not bringing me along?" Xiahong Pavilion frowned, and her proud and cold brows surged with a trace of displeasure. Su Yi's eyes widened as he looked at Xiahong Lu, and Li Ling. Xiahong Lu said, "You still haven't told me about this, Brother Eben." "Yes, Sui, and we've always wanted to thank you in person. It's rare to see you in your travels. Let's go to the Taichin continent together." The corners of Li Ling's mouth curled up slightly as she leaned toward the snow-red pavilion. Her cheeks were as red as clouds. Seeing Su Yi's hesitant appearance, Xiahong Lu put her arms around Su Yi's neck and gently reprimanded. "You brat, do you think that my cultivation is too low to help you? What are you talking about?" Su Yi rolled his eyes as warmth and conflict crazily struggled in his heart. The snow-red pavilion now had such a huge sacred mountain to manage and a lovely wife like Li Ling to accompany him. It would naturally be good if the snow-red pavilion could go with him, but this matter could be considered as Su Yi's own personal matter. Su Yi wasn't too willing to let the snow-red pavilion get involved so early just to avenge the spirit ancient village. Unable to persuade the snow-red pavilion, Su Yi finally relented and nodded. "Fine, let's go together." Before they left, Li Ling was still asked to stay behind to help the snow-red pavilion complete the inspection. The snow-red pavilion and Li Ling were still affectionate. There was an earth-shattering change in the wind god-man from before, who was as cold as ice and stone. In front of the teleportation crystal, Su Yi looked at the snow-red pavilion with a sincere smile. "I didn't think that you would have such a day." Suddenly, a trace of embarrassment appeared in the snow-red pavilion's eyes. Beside her, Lan Linglian and Dugi Yuma covered their faces and chuckled. "You brat." When the snow-red pavilion grabbed Su Yi was already surrounded by the light of the crystal. The ripples drifted in the air, and he disappeared without a trace. Boom! Seeing the faint green figure in front of them disappear, the entire space began to distort. A powerful spatial power rushed toward them, and soon, the void of the teleportation station was distorted like a fried dough twist. The figures of the snow-red pavilion, Lan Linglian, and Dugu Yuma gradually disappeared. "Oh my God!" The Zhongzhou city lord stood in front of Li Ling, and his eyes were filled with shock. He whispered, "Sacred Master, this is incredible. The King of Prodigies, Sacred Snow Emperor, Celestial Maiden Lan, and Lady Dugu all have extraordinary backgrounds. This scoundrel will definitely be captured. Watching everyone disappear, a trace of noble coldness appeared on Li Ling's gentle face. She had the demeanor of a sacred master. She said softly and coldly, "Don't tell anyone about what happened today. The inspection continues." Yes, Taiching continent, where the Taiching sect was located. Among the one mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions, it was a mid-level force. Previously, he had heard Qi Feihong mention that most of the forces in the one mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions were powerful on the surface, but secretly relied on the aristocratic families to survive. Among the upper-level forces, the original Sacred Mountain, the current Divine Tiger sect, and the Sky Dragon sect had countless unclear relationships with the Long family. It was rumored that the Immortal Sword sect had always wanted to establish a relationship with the 10,000 Sword Alliance. On the other hand, the Taiching sect was secretly in contact with the Thunderfire Temple. At this moment, in the sky above the Taiching continent, a pitch-black spatial crack flashed, and the pressure of the entire sky suddenly decreased. A few powerful rays of light crossed the sky and directly descended on the ground of the Taiching continent. The ground shook slightly. Sensing that there was no movement in the surroundings, Su-Yi slowly relaxed his aura. This Taiching continent is also famous for its vast land and abundant resources. I'm afraid that we won't be able to find Hu Qi in a short time. Su-Yi stretched. Since he knew that Hu Qi was in the Taiching continent, Su-Yi was no longer in a hurry. Letting him live a little longer was the result that Su-Yi wanted. "Then I'll arrange for the Sacred Mountain's branch to search," Xiang Hao said. Su-Yi raised his hand and looked into the distance. Faint clouds floated and said, "A strong dragon can't suppress a snake in its own territory." During the Tianfeng ranking tournament, the Taiching sect had some contact with the Jintian Palace. You see, I didn't even bother to look for Nye Xuangjue of the Taiching branch palace because I don't want to use our own people in such a close situation. The closer the distance, the more eyes there will be. Hearing this, Xiahong House also felt that it made sense and immediately said, "It's just that the Taiching sect has always been in contact with the Thunderfire Temple. I'm worried." Instantly, Su-Yi's lips curled into a smile. His deep gaze landed on the 3 of them as he spoke softly. "Then we can go and explore the details of the Thunderfire Temple. The battle with the Long family will come eventually. Even if they don't help us when the time comes, we can't let the Thunderfire Holy Temple help them." "What Taiching sect? If they get angry, I'll put them out." Tuntin jumped out of Su-Yi's arms and said fiercely. Chapter 2289. Su-Yi smiled bitterly as he looked at the desolation engulfing heavenly beast in his arms. His eyes were filled with helplessness as he shook his head. "You better not move around blindly. You're an ancient demonic beast. If these people know about your movements, my situation will be even more difficult. You better stay here obediently." Su-Yi touched Tuntin's head as the corner of his mouth curled up slightly. Immediately, he stuffed Tuntin into his arms a little more. Ancient demonic beast. Every time Tuntin poked its head out, Xiahong Lu's expression would change. When Tuntin was once again hidden in Su-Yi's arms, Xiahong Lu had already turned his face to the side. Since Su-Yi hadn't told him about Tuntin's origin for the time being, Xiahong Lu naturally wouldn't ask about it according to his temperament. Looking at Lan Belian and Dugayuma beside him, Xiahong Lu knew that these 2 were also very clear about Tuntin's identity. Xiahong Lu had absolute trust in Su-Yi. As long as Su-Yi didn't say anything, he wouldn't ask. Xiahong Lu believed that when the time came, Su-Yi would naturally tell him. Everyone in the Taiching continent knows about the Taiching sect. Many years ago, I had also visited here with the elders of the Holy Mountain. I'll lead the way. Follow me. Xiahong Lu gently waved his sleeves, and an earth-shattering yuan qi accompanied by a whistling gust of wind. Suddenly, a golden light appeared under his feet. "Let's go." Su-Yi smiled slightly. Lan Belian and Dugayuma looked at each other and nodded. Suddenly, their bodies shone brightly, and the water attribute and sword qi covered the sky. Above the void, the aura grew endlessly. The two girls immediately urged the Yuan Qi under their feet to follow Xiahong Lu and Su Yi. Their speed was as fast as lightning. In the sky, for ghost-like phantoms flashed past, and they were all moving close to the ground at high speed. On the green ground, the grass was stuck to the ground. The strong wind blew, and the violent Yuan Qi pressed out 4 deep gullies along the way. The terrifying strength displayed by the 4 of them would undoubtedly make anyone present gasp in admiration. In less than half a day, the 4 of them came to a huge mountain gate. On the huge golden stone, there were 3 big words carved on it, Tai Ching Sect. "We're here," Su Yi said with a faint smile. Looking at the sky, the vast energy fluctuations in the air were like the 9 heavens' immortal qi slowly blowing away, causing the eyes of the 4 people who had been running for a long time to light up. Su Yi's eyes stopped on the flowing light of secret patterns that lingered in the air. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Because the 4 of them had already discussed before, this time they came to ask the people of the Tai Ching sect to help find Hu Qi, so they would try not to expose their identities as much as possible. Therefore, they were not going to report their names directly. With the Tai Ching family, the current situation was that among the 5 great families, the Yun family was on his side. Tianlan Sea City had chosen the Long family. The remaining ones were the Thunderfire Temple and the Myriad Sword Alliance. With a slight frown, Su Yi's deep black eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. He had also come to the Tai Ching sect. Xiahong House took the lead and said coldly to the Tai Ching sect's guarding disciple, "Brother, we are from the Juqian Palace. We want to see your Tai Ching sect master." "Presumptuous. I'm not free." The Tai Ching sect's disciple's eyes were burning, and his brows were frowning. Looking at the handsome man, he didn't think much and asked him to leave. Xiahong House was slightly stunned, and the 3 people behind him all frowned. At this time, Su Yi stepped forward and frowned at the 2 disciples guarding the mountain. The strength of the 2 people in front of him had already reached the first level of Origin Emperor realm, which was quite extraordinary. The cultivation of the 2 guarding disciples was so high. This was a luxury for a first-class strength like the Tai Ching sect. Come to think of it, something important must have happened to the Tai Ching sect, so they were so cautious. Su Yi was suspicious in his heart. Suddenly, Su Yi's Origin Supreme technique suddenly channeled. He secretly condensed a handprint. From his wide sleeves, a faint golden light shrouded, and a fierce, murderous aura spread out. The oncoming vast energy immediately made the 2 guarding disciples tremble. Their faces changed wildly. Large beads of sweat quickly slid down from their foreheads. They said in amazement, "Who are you? Didn't I ask you to leave?" "The people of the Juqian Palace, I just said, we want to see your Tai Ching sect master, Sikong Zongxing. I think you'd better inform him." As soon as the voice sounded, the aura around Su Yi's body dispersed in the space again, and the space ripples visible to the naked eye suddenly shattered. "You!" One of the guarding disciples was knocked back a few steps by Su Yi's qi, and he was stopped by another guarding disciple. The latter said, "Okay, you wait for a while. I will inform you immediately. You can wait in the Tai Ching Hall." When the 2 disciples entered the door, Su Yi, Xiahong House, and others were led into the Tai Ching Hall. The solemn space was mixed with a huge, vast energy, giving people a righteous and awe-inspiring feeling. What happened to the Tai Ching sect? Why do they look so flustered? Lan Linglian recalled the strangeness of the guarding disciple and the guiding disciple just now, and her eyes began to ripple. Hearing this, Su Yi also shrugged his shoulders and said to everyone, "Since we are here, let's take things as they come. If the Tai Ching sect can't even take care of themselves, we will just leave." Immediately, everyone nodded. After half a day, time passed like quicksand, but the Tai Ching Hall was still quiet. "Damn it, is this Sikong Zongxing deliberately leaving us out?" Xiahong House was a little impatient from waiting, and she stood up abruptly. At this time, in the vast and mighty light that filled the sky, an incomparably fierce an enormous power erupted from the crack of the door. The eyes of the four people darkened. Powerful Yuan Qi light, accompanied by vast and mighty Yuan Qi, instantly filled the grand clear hall. Tai Ching, 3-point formation. Kill these people for me. A loud shout sounded outside the door, and the entire space rippled. The terrifying sword array aura soared into the sky. The huge green light sword array was like a poisonous snake, piercing through the door and directly turning into an endless sword shadow storm that rushed toward the four people in the room. The astonishing power swept across the world, and it came suddenly, making everyone secretly surprised. "How dare you harm my master? I will kill you," Tunton roared. As soon as the black iron light burst out, it was pressed into his chest by Sue-Yi. Such a change happened in an instant. The eyes of the four flashed at the same time, and they shouted together. Above the void, for light shadows that controlled the world were formed and went toward the green sword. Boom! The unparalleled sword shadow immediately set off a sky full of lightning sword shadows, and the terrifying Saint King Qi directly lifted the countless jade bricks in the hall into a defensive array. Chapter 2290. Immediately afterward, the surging spiritual power rushed out along with the deep-sea gas. The violent vitality fluctuation fell from the sky and fiercely blocked in front of the four people. G. The sea curtains surged, and the golden red Emperor Sparrow divine flame whizzed out. The monstrous divine bird's coercion was above any kind of coercion, instantly filling the whole world. Within the light, Sue-Yi was shrouded in a divine ring, and the crimson golden secret patterns kept flowing in the space. The Emperor Sparrow phantasm cast by the pure fire attribute vitality caused a large area of space ripples to appear, horrifying distortion. Above the sky, the Emperor Sparrow spread its divine wind wings and opened its fiery eyes. Flames that seemed to be able to suppress everything in the world spewed out from the sky. The divine power was vast, and the divine flame burned the sky. Under such a powerful coercion, some of the Tai Ching sect's martial artists with low cultivation directly prostrated on the ground with blood spurting out. At this time, the eyes of the powerhouses and disciples who were channeling the Tai Ching 3 points formation began to surge with extreme fear. Looking at the strange vitality phantasm in the sky, everyone's heart had already palpitated. The golden clouds were dense, the waves were turbulent, and the divine bird was flying in the sky. The surging flames penetrated the space like a lightning beam, and the green light sword array directly intertwined in the void. Clang, clang. When this surging beam of light, which had fused for different types of energy, collided with the great sword in the air, its momentum instantly collapsed. A powerful energy pressure spread out from it, and the entire sky began to tremble violently. Boom, boom. The ground of the Tai Ching main hall, which was thousands of meters long, was directly lifted by countless sharp blades. The huge impact made the originally majestic hall instantly become a murderous aura battlefield. Bang, bang, bang. At the moment of the collision, all the Tai Ching sect's martial artists present had a drastic change in expression. An indescribable soul fluctuation swept out from the main hall. The space ripples shattered the void, and the majestic soul energy also directly overturned dozens of Tai Ching sect's martial artists to the ground as if they had no power to fight back at all. Outside the main hall, there was an uproar. The low sonic boom continued to resound above the main hall, and many Tai Ching sect's martial artists collapsed to the ground. Amidst their astonished gazes, no one dared to believe that their most powerful joint attack formation of over 100 people had been blocked so easily. The remaining Tai Ching sect's disciples who were still holding on were still tough, but their faces were also full of weakness. A bloody smell condensed in their chests. Hold on, there must be something wrong with these thieves of unknown origin. Standing in the middle of the crowd, a young man with a broad face and high cheekbones shouted sternly, looking in the direction of the main hall. Even if he had consumed a lot of his vitality, he still refused to give up. Yes, senior fellow apprentice Chiu. All of the martial artists on the field revealed a resolute expression, as if they were facing a mortal enemy. They stood up once more, their eyes filled with surging blood as they shot towards the main hall like arrows. Then, a dazzling green sword light array was formed once more. Go! Under the young man's command, all the cultivators who could still fight stepped forward, their eyes filled with killing intent shooting out. Xiao Nongfeng, why are you making such a big scene? Is this how the Taiqing sect treats their guests? In the hall, Zhu Honglu's low voice was accompanied by powerful soul energy. In the glazed tiles of the main hall, countless golden lights flashed. The dazzling light broke through the world like a waterfall. The light dissipated, and 4 figures appeared outside the main hall. When the 4 people landed, the Taiqing sect's people saw that the 4 people were all young men and women in their 20s. The entire space trembled, and then everything seemed to be stagnant. The pupils of everyone present suddenly shrank. No words could describe the mood of the injured disciples at this moment. Everyone looked at the 4 people in horror. The combat power in the main hall just now was too terrifying. What was even more terrifying was that such terrifying combat power actually came from the hands of these 4 young men. The surprised eyes, mixed with fear, slowly glanced at the 4 people. Everyone was shocked. No one thought that Lan Xiaoyan and Dugi Yuma, who were slender and delicate, actually hid such amazing strength under their jade-like skin. The man who spoke just now had his black hair fluttering slowly. He stood there leisurely. His extraordinarily handsome face revealed the domineering power of a natural emperor. What made the powerhouses present even more terrified was the figure in a green robe next to the man in golden clothes. His robe was fluttering, and he was shrouded in a divine halo. Deep in his dark eyes, there was the profound aura of a great master. His every move had the ability to move the sky and the sea, which made people want to kneel down and worship him. Suddenly, everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The ferocious aura that burst out from these 4 young men was too powerful. It was definitely not comparable to those present. So powerful. How can these 4 people be so strong? Especially the young man in the green robe. He is the youngest but the most terrifying one. The phantom of the divine bird just now should be him. Senior brother Chiu, who are these people? The powerhouses present all looked stiff as if they had seen a ghost. They stepped back unconsciously. Waves flashed in the depths of their pupils, and they looked at Xiao Nongfeng, who was the leader. Xiao Nongfeng narrowed his eyes and took a step forward in disbelief. His eyelids twitched a few times, and then he opened his mouth and said loudly, "How can it be you?" As the core disciple of the Taiqing sect, Xiao Nongfeng had naturally participated in the Tianfeng ranking battle. He had definitely seen the real faces of Su Yi, Lan Balian, Dugi Yuma, and the Xiahong house. As long as you know who we are, what the hell are you doing? Why are you killing everyone you see? Lan Balian gave Xiao Nongfeng a look. She was afraid that Xiao Nongfeng would say her name. Then she frowned and said in a complaining tone, "Put it down, put it down." Hearing that, Xiao Nongfeng took a deep breath. His eyes were full of shock, and he immediately asked all the disciples to withdraw their primordial qi. "Everyone, take a step back and adjust your qi. This is a misunderstanding." As soon as he finished speaking, the green sword light around Xiao Nongfeng immediately turned into smoke and dissipated. He bowed slightly to Su Yi and the others, and then he quickly ran into the hall. When he walked up to Su Yi and saw the king of geniuses, Xiao Nongfeng couldn't help but tremble slightly because of the soul energy released by Su Yi. Xiao Nongfeng's eyes flashed, and he apologized to the 4 people again. The 4 people in front of him were calm, and their primordial qi was condensed and dazzling. Xiao Nongfeng knew that the 4 people had already held back their strength. Looking at Dugi Yuma and Lan Balian, Xiao Nongfeng immediately broke out in a cold sweat. At this time, Xiao Nongfeng's lingering fear surged. If he had fought with all his strength just now, the hall of the Tai Ching sect would have been turned into a pile of ruins now. Guys, this is not the place to talk. Please follow me. Xiao Nongfeng lowered his voice. His eyebrows were as cold as iron, as if he was hiding something earth-shattering. In the surprised eyes, Su Yi and the other 3 people frowned and followed Xiao Nongfeng to the inner hall. Flowing lights surged under their feet, and they quickly disappeared, leaving the shocked crowd behind. Chapter 2291. What's going on? Why is everyone in the Tai Ching sect in danger? Sui looked at the anxious Qiao Nongfeng and asked in a low voice. In the inner court, Qiao Nongfeng kept apologizing to Su Yi and the people of the Xiahong house. Facing Su Yi's question, Qiao Nongfeng sighed and sat down. You're here. If you told me earlier, you wouldn't have made such a big fuss. But you really came at the wrong time. The Tai Ching continent has not been peaceful recently. Qiao Nongfeng's deep eyes searched. His gaze fell on Su Yi and the others, and then he continued to explain. The original Tai Ching continent had always been dominated by the Tai Ching sect. Although there were branches of other sects such as the Holy Mountain and the Juqian Palace, and various forces and sects were intertwined, they all lived in peace. The Tai Ching sect also maintained an optimistic attitude towards the development of other sections. As long as they didn't endanger the people and warriors of the Tai Ching sect and didn't endanger their oligarchic status, the Tai Ching sect wouldn't restrict them too much. After that, Xiao Nongfeng curled his lips and his eyebrows gradually became solemn. He said in a low voice, "But in recent months, many villages in the Tai Ching continent have broken out with fire poison plagues. The situation is getting worse and worse, and many people have died one after another." According to Qiao Nongfeng's description, the poisoned people's bodies would be covered with scale-like protrusions, like the scales of a fire dragon. If they didn't get effective treatment, their meridians would soon dry up, their flesh would shrink, and they would die from the high-temperature explosion. Suddenly, Su Yi, who was good at using the vitality of fire, suddenly moved his eyelids slightly. The information in his mind fluttered like butterflies. The strange toxicity of fire poison was recorded in the ancestral dragon medicine scripture. Generally speaking, the flame was not poisonous. But if the cultivator cultivated with an evil cultivation method or swallowed a large amount of super toxic medicine during the cultivation process, it would make the power of his flame greatly increase, and it would also increase the unparalleled toxicity. Have you found the culprit now? Lan Rulian frowned and looked at Qiao Nongfeng. Someone who could use such cruel means must not be a righteous sect. Found it. The powerhouses in my Tai Ching sect have been investigating for half a month, and they finally found that on the Fire Evil Island adjacent to the Divine Tiger Continent, there is a group of fire martial artists who specialize in this kind of poison attribute. The 4 immediately nodded. When they heard the words Divine Tiger Continent, everyone looked at each other in dismay. A bad premonition welled up in their hearts. The Fire Fiend sect was adjacent to the Divine Tiger Continent, and Hu Qi just so happened to return to the Tai Ching continent. Could there be some unspeakable connection between them? This group of rogue cultivators claimed to be the Fire Evil Spirit Gang. They made a living by stealing martial artists who came and went between the islands all year round. Although they cultivated fire poison, they weren't very powerful. They didn't cause any big trouble on normal days, so the Tai Ching sect just let them be. Qiao Nongfeng thought for a while. There was hatred and anger in his deep eyes. He gradually clenched his fists. Who would have thought that the Tai Ching continent would go crazy over the past month, and more people would be struck by fire poison? The Fire Evil Spirit Gang seemed to grow rapidly overnight, and the cultivation of every member improved by leaps and bounds. The Tai Ching sect had sent out 3 waves of disciples to investigate, and all of them died of fire poison. Qiao Nongfeng slammed his fist on the table, making a dull sound. After listening to Qiao Nongfeng's words, Xiahong Lu and Su Yi looked at each other and suddenly found many suspicious points. Xiahong Lu said softly, "So the Fire Evil Spirit Gang is still entrenched on the Fire Evil Island?" Xiao Nongfeng nodded and told everyone that because the disciples of the Tai Ching sect were also killed, the super powerhouses of the Tai Ching sect were alarmed. Now, the Tai Ching sect had sent out their powerful elders to suppress the fire evil spirit gang. 3 days had passed, and they should be back soon. What about your sect master, Sikong Songxing? Such a big thing happened, but I didn't see him. Su Yi frowned. Logically speaking, since such a strange thing happened in the Tai Ching continent, how could Xiao Nongfeng be the only one in charge of the Tai Ching sect? Suddenly, a trace of embarrassment appeared at the corner of Xiao Nongfeng's mouth. His slightly stiff face showed that Xiao Nongfeng still had something to say. The corner of Xiao Nongfeng's eyes twitched. At this time, there were 7 or 8 whistling sounds outside the house, followed by the shout of the guarding disciple outside. The elder is back. Xiao Nongfeng's eyes immediately lit up, and he said softly, Su Yi, I will explain it to you later. Nongfeng will go first. When everyone saw the light shadow under Xiao Nongfeng's feet floating out, the 4 of them immediately sat together and began to think. Why do you think Xiao Nongfeng didn't tell us where Sikong Songxing went? Lan Balian's eyes wandered between Su Yi and Xiahong Lu. Both of them were silent. Su Yi, who was slowly stroking his chin, had a cold look in his eyes, and his brows gradually frowned into a straight line. Sikong Songxing didn't appear. Could it be that Sikong Songxing isn't in the Tai Ching sect at all? The Tai Ching sect has no leader, so they are so flustered. Dugayuma's beautiful eyes moved slightly, and the blue light carefully swept across Su Yi's face. Su Yi nodded slowly and said softly, Then where do you think Sikong Songxing might have gone? Sikong Songxing, a sect master with the first-class strength of the Sky Barbarian tribe. Could it be that he left the sect at will, and the people below him didn't know and didn't care at all? This was very strange, and it didn't make sense. Suddenly, the 4 of them suddenly raised their heads. Under Su Yi's reminder, their eyes quickly converged like lightning. Sikong Songxing went to the Thunderfire Holy Hall. Then, the 4 of them lowered their voices. The corner of Su Yi's lips curled up. Now, this is the most likely possibility. Sikong Songxing seems to have gone to the Thunderfire Holy Hall for quite a long time. What happened in the Thunderfire Holy Hall that made the sect master of the Tai Ching sect spare so many days to attend it? With Yin Mietian's character, if something big really happened, it would definitely alarm the Sky Barbarian tribe. It seems that even he has to keep a low profile for this matter. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Lan Balian analyzed carefully and blurted out quickly. Yes, the Fire Evil Gang must know that the Tai Ching sect has a loophole, so they dare to make trouble on a large scale. Su Yi said with a faint smile. Today's matter should be very obvious. There must be a force behind the Fire Evil Gang, and this fire poison plague may be a cover. To be able to challenge the Tai Ching sect, the closest force is the Divine Tiger sect. Xiang House took a deep breath and looked at Su Yi with arms crossed. In the room, the pure energy light in the space rolled out. Su Yi's eyes gradually boiled with excitement. An unknown fighting intent surged in the air as he said coldly. Then this Hu Qi escaped to the Tai Ching continent just to save his life. Sure enough, the 1,000-man spirit tiger Qi considered more things than he thought. Chapter 2292. Instantly, a formless understanding flashed across the faces of the 4 of them. Apart from that, there was also an arrogant look in Su Yi's eyes. Things are getting more and more complicated. Looks like it's finally my turn. Tunten narrowed her eyes and said eerily. Tunten was pulled into Su Yi's arms. Her black iron-like eyes were filled with grievance. Su Yi said, Everyone, we're going to be involved in this mess again. If the Divine Tiger sect is involved, the Long family might be involved as well. Everyone be prepared. I'm not afraid. Lan Rillian's bright eyes moved slightly. I'm not afraid either. Dugayuma's eyes moved slightly as she looked at Lan Rillian. Her face was filled with determination. Su Yi, I'm on your side anyway. Shui Honglu glanced out of the window. Her body was still ramrod straight, and an extraordinary domineering aura surged out once again. Her deep eyes were boundless. In the inner chamber of the Tai Ching sect, Su-yi sniffed as excitement flashed across his eyes. This time, what kind of tricks would the Divine Tiger sect play? How deeply would they implicate the Thunder Fire Temple? Su-yi lifted his hand and tapped his chin lightly. Then he fell into deep thought. Suddenly, Xiao Nongfeng's voice came from outside. What? Something like this actually happened. Get the elders of the Xinglian Hall to come out. Xiao Nongfeng's voice came from afar. There was obvious anxiety in his deep voice. Instantly, Su-yi and the other three people's gazes turned gloomy. They knew that the situation outside was not to be underestimated. Perhaps the elders who had gone to deal with the Fire Evil Gang had suffered a great setback. As expected, Xiao Nongfeng ran in anxiously, sweating profusely. His face was gloomy and his voice was filled with pain. A total of 8 elders went. 5 of them were Origin Grandmasters and 3 of them were Origin Emperors. Only 2 elders at 9th level of Origin Grandmasters returned, but they were injured. Xiao Nongfeng's words instantly made Su-yi and Xiahong Lu's expressions change. Xiahong Lu said softly, "The Fire Evil Gang alone can't be so lethal. It seems like there's someone else behind the Fire Evil Gang." That's right. According to the elder who came back, not only did the members of the Fire Evil Gang become more powerful, but there are also many unfamiliar faces around them. They're obviously not from the Tai Ching continent. Xiao Nongfeng's expression changed drastically. This time, the faction behind the Fire Evil Gang was extraordinary. 3 Origin Ancestor Realm experts and 3 Origin Emperor Realm experts died consecutively. For the Tai Ching sect, although it couldn't affect their foundation, it was enough to cause a huge commotion in the Tai Ching sect. Xiao Nongfeng crossed his palms and frowned. He walked back and forth in the inner chamber, murmuring, "All the Grand Elders are in seclusion. The Fire Evil Gang must be up to something. I have to ask the Domain Realm Elder of Chongwu Hall for help." Xiao Nongfeng shook his head helplessly and then muttered to himself, "Why did Master leave the sect and give me such a task? Why did it cause such a commotion?" Suddenly, Su-yi's eyes flashed with a cunning light. It turned out that Xiao Nongfeng also had his own concerns. He wanted to use his own power to deal with these trivial matters before Sikong, Songxing, came back. After a while, Xiao Nongfeng, who might have realized that he had lost his composure, felt that he was going crazy. He looked at Su-yi and the others apologetically. "Everyone, I'm in a terrible fix. I don't have time to entertain you. If you have something urgent to attend to, please leave first. Otherwise, I'll accompany you to travel around the Tai Ching sect after I've dealt with these matters," Xiao Nongfeng said with a smile on his face. Hearing Xiao Nongfeng's words, Su-yi and the others took a step forward at the same time. Xiao Nongfeng's eyelids twitched. "We happen to be free. We can help you deal with the Fire Evil Gang," Lan Rillian said with a kind look in her eyes. Xiao Nongfeng's eyes lit up as if he had found his savior. He licked his dry lips. However, he knew that among the 4 people, Su-yi was the most authoritative one. Xiao Nongfeng looked at Su-yi. Su-yi also shook his head with a smile. Xiao Nongfeng became excited. Just now, the Tai Ching sect's Tai Ching 3 points formation could easily resist the attack. The combined strength of the 4 people was terrifying. One was the King of Talents, the number 1 young man in Tianfeng. One was the Saint Snow Emperor, the leader of the upper sect. One was the disciple of the Sword Immortal. One was the Fairy of Sea City. What else couldn't they do? Then, Nongfeng can't ask for more. Xiao Nongfeng danced with joy. He wanted to step forward, but his feet twitched slightly. "It's just that the 4 of us are visiting the Tai Ching sect because we have nothing to do. If we do go, you'd better not reveal our identities." Su-yi's lips curled up slightly. That was exactly what Xiao Nongfeng wanted. Xiao Nongfeng was delighted and agreed immediately. All of a sudden, all the problems were solved. Xiao Nongfeng was very happy. He said to Su-yi, "Let's meet at the mountain later. I'll find you some robes of the Tai Ching sect. Wait for a moment." Not long after, Xiao Nongfeng sent someone to deliver the robes of the Tai Ching sect. Then he went to the injured elder to inquire about the news. When he opened the door of the inner chamber, a ray of bright sunlight shone down from above. For sage-like old men walked out of the hall slowly. Puff, your beard is so funny. Su Yi narrowed his eyes and looked at Xiahong Lu, who had become old. His snow-white beard stuck to his chin, which made him look very elegant. Xiahong Lu coughed heavily and glanced at Su Yi from the corner of his eyes. At this moment, Su Yi's messy gray hair shone with a dazzling silver light. The wrinkles at the corners of his eyes made it impossible to tell that he was still the high-spirited young man whose name shook the sky barbarian realm. How dare you laugh at me? You're an old man yourself. Xiahong Lu laughed. Even his voice was disguised as hoarse. Beside him, two charming old ladies walked out. One of them walked slowly, and the other was big and round. Looking at the two of them, Su Yi could not hold it in anymore. He saw Lon Balian walking over with her hips swaying. There was a black mole on her disguised face. She looked very funny. Are you a matchmaker or an elder? Su Yi laughed so hard that he almost fainted. He shook his head and laughed with his hands on his waist. Lon Balian pouted and looked at Su Yi. A murderous look flashed in her eyes. She made a chopping motion in front of her. You don't understand. There used to be an 8-armed witch lady in the Tai Ching continent. She just had a big mole on her face. But that was decades ago. As he spoke, Su Yi gave Lon Balian a thumbs up and nodded. You're the best at talking nonsense. He turned to look at Dugu Yuma. Although she was big and round, she still had some beauty. He said softly, Look, Miss Dugu, you're so fat, but you're still so beautiful. You really can't do it. Chapter 2293. Get lost. Lon Balian waved her fists and shouted. Then, after the four of them teased each other, a fierce light surged under their feet again, and they rushed toward the front mountain. Everyone was watching the front mountain of Tai Ching's sect. Divine clouds were flowing in the sky. In the wind, dozens of Tai Ching's sect disciples were ready to go, staring at the purple lightning and blue frost in the sky. The Tai Ching sect disciples looked resolute. The Tai Ching continent represented the supreme dignity of this continent, which was named after the Tai Ching continent. Everyone stared at Xiao Nongfeng in front of them. His plain face was full of majesty and decisiveness. The bright light in his eyes meant that this trip was different from the past. Xiao Nongfeng had replaced all the young disciples who formed the formation. His two dark eyes swept across everyone, and Xiao Nongfeng's deep voice resounded throughout the place. Since Master is not here, we are the guardians of the Tai Ching sect. The Tai Ching continent is not peaceful. What should we do? Kill. Xiao Nongfeng nodded slightly. He kept glancing at the sky from the corner of his eyes, and then he said to everyone, Today, we will do something for Master and the elders. We, the Tai Ching sect, are invincible. 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 A tsunami-like heat wave swept through the sky. Immediately, all the Tai Ching sect disciples present pointed their hands to the sky. Their burning emotions seemed to be burning the sky. Now, let's welcome the elders. Elder Su, Elder Shui, Elder Lon, and Elder Mo. Xiao Nongfeng looked at the four terrifying auras in the sky, getting closer and closer. He raised his hands in the air and said to the disciples in front of him. These disciples were the most elite disciples that he had selected from the outer sect disciples, but they didn't know much about the inner sect. In this way, Xiao Nongfeng could not only hide the identity of Su Yi and the others, but he could also solve the Fire Evil Gang's incident perfectly. Following Xiao Nongfeng's gaze, dozens of burning eyes immediately shot to the sky. Four terrifying auras swept through the sky and rushed over like wild dragons. Suddenly, the sky and earth trembled. For majestic soul energies shattered the ripples in the surrounding space. The thunderous sonic boom immediately suppressed the boiling sound waves in the surroundings. Most of the disciples present hadn't even entered the inner court, so when they saw these four elders now, Their hearts were instantly filled with respect and reverence. As the four figures gradually solidified, the spatial storm that blew in the air also caused the disciple's body to tremble. For words came out of his mouth unconsciously. "Welcome for elders! Welcome for elders! Welcome for elders!" As soon as he finished speaking, Su, Yi, and the others soared into the sky. Their green robes fluttered in the wind, and their violent aura caused the space above the sky to ripple. Looking at this scene, he immediately understood Qiu Nongfeng's intention. Qiu Nongfeng also stood on the high ground and winked at Su, Yi, and the others. "This fellow's acting is quite good." Lan Rillian lowered her voice. Her wrinkled lips curled into a smile. "Get up." Su Yi narrowed his eyes, and his deep voice exploded like thunder. Many disciples who were bowing looked up at the four elders who were like gods. Their eyes were filled with uncontrollable excitement. As outer court disciples, it was already a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to participate in the sex activities. Now that they could see the four elders, they couldn't be described with the word excited. Instantly, dozens of eyes stared at the four elders with longing, and they began to whisper, "They are indeed inner court elders. Their entrance is really cool." The elders who spoke just now are probably at the Yuan domain realm. "We are really lucky to be able to train under such strong people. We must perform well. If we can be accepted as their disciples, we won't have to worry about the Tai Ching sect anymore." In an enthusiastic discussion, Qiu Nongfeng walked out slowly. He bowed to Su, Yi, and the others and said with a smile, "For elders, let's go. The Fire Evil Island is close to the Godly Tiger Continent. I will lead the way. Let's go." Su Yi smiled gently. Tuntin, who was in his arms, seemed to want to stretch her head out to take a look, but Su Yi stuffed her back in. "Behave yourself. I will let you out to exercise." Su Yi whispered to Tuntin. Tuntin had no choice but to shrink into a small black ball and try not to be discovered. The people present quickly made a path for them. Under the admiring gazes of the crowd, Su, Yi, and the others from the Xiaohong house wanted to go to the Fire Evil Island openly. Su, Yi, and the others flew out first. Even Qiu Nongfeng found it difficult to catch up with them because of their ferocious speed. For rays of light moved rapidly in the sky of the Tai Ching continent, like a giant dragon that swallowed space. This time, Su Yi was going to destroy the Fire Evil Gang, and even more, he was going to destroy the Godly Tiger sect and the forces behind the Godly Tiger sect. Their speed was like a phantom. Flames soared into the sky, and the flying shadows left streaks of black traces in the sky. The Tai Ching sect disciples behind them were even more shocked and admired them. After flying for half a day, only Qiu Nongfeng and the other four people were left. The Tai Ching sect disciples behind them knew the route and didn't have the speed, so they could only follow slowly. The Tai Ching continent had always been built with spiritual energy and abundant water plants. Qiu Nongfeng led Su, Yi, and the others to set off from the coastline and kept flying upwards. Along the way, Su Yi saw the vastness of the sea and the continuous lush mountains. When night fell, the coast that was supposed to be cool and breezy was surging with hot waves. Standing on a red rock, he looked around. Because of the extreme heat, there were almost no plants growing around. There were dozens of small islands around, like black fortresses standing on the sea. A night wind blew from afar. Immediately, gray-black smoke jumped out from the island in the distance. The smoke filled the air like a violent fire dragon hiding in the darkness. "This is the Fire Evil Island." Qiu Nongfeng pointed at the black smoke that filled the void in front of him and introduced it to Su Yi. "These are ancient small volcanoes at the bottom of the sea. As the years passed, the environment here became worse and worse. But I didn't expect it to be occupied by the Fire Evil Gang." Following Qiu Nongfeng's direction, Su Yi's primordial qi immediately surged out. The extreme fire primordial qi was like a fish swimming in shallow water. Su Yi's consciousness and mind trembled. He had seen many volcanoes, but it was rare to see a volcanic crater that could even distort the space. The fire primordial chi hidden in it must be extraordinary. You do have some skills. Ask your fellow disciples to surround the area. Try not to alert them. Evacuate all the surrounding villagers. He lowered his voice and said to Qiao Nongfeng. In the night, Qiao Nongfeng's eyes were like a lone eagle. He nodded at Su, Yi, and Zhu Honglu. His voice was extremely low. Chapter 2294. The residents in the surrounding area had already been dismissed when the elders came the last time. I'll give the order now. I'll leave the rest to you. Qiao Nongfeng looked around alertly. Then, he released his qi and quickly disappeared in the dark night. What did you find? Zhu Honglu whispered. These volcanoes are not ordinary volcanoes. The Taiqing sect's people have been here once, and the Fire Evil Spirit Gang is still stationed here openly. There should be a great secret here that prevents them from leaving. He said softly. His eyes met with the four of them, and he made a gesture to move forward. Go in. Suddenly, Su, Yi, Zhu Honglu, and the other four people rushed in four directions. The majestic energy released a fierce light, and the fire wrapped around Su Yi's feet. A stream of light with a faint white mist went directly to the small volcanic island with the most gray smoke. The crimson light rose faintly from Su Yi's body. As soon as he landed, Su Yi, who was standing in the air, could feel the huge flame energy inside. Suddenly, a glimmer of light flashed in Su Yi's eyes, and the Origin Supreme technique was spread out. Under the huge pressure, Su Yi quickly found the weakest place on the hot surface. Faintly, through the weak surface, Su Yi found that there seemed to be many people under this volcanic island. Looking up, he saw that Zhu Honglu, Lan Xiaoyan, and Dugi Yuma also found the place where the aura converged. As soon as Su Yi's gesture fell, the four people's eyes became fierce at the same time. Boom! The entire island began to tremble slightly. In that instant, the flame aura around Su Yi's body began to cut the surface of the ground like a sharp blade. Only the ear-piercing sound of air rushing out could be heard. Chilala! The ground seemed to be scorched, and grayish-white smoke and dust quickly drifted out along the cracks. Suddenly, unscrupulous flames flew out along with the smoke and dust. The whistling wind and fire blew Su Yi's green hair up high like a poisonous snake. In the dark night, Su Yi's obsidian-like pupils seemed to see a rolling flame dragon that was going to devour all the people who went in. He glanced at the Zhu Honglu and others beside him. They were also ready, for crimson flames rushed into the sky. It was dazzling like the ghost fire that symbolized the death of hell. Everyone, be careful. The temperature of this flame is much higher than normal flames. Once we're down there, we'll act according to the situation. Su Yi's voice, which was mixed with primordial qi, rolled over. It was strange and floating in the thick smoke. The other three nodded at the same time. Looking at the magma gushing at the bottom, Su Yi took a deep breath, turned into a light cluster, and blasted down. Xiao. Another 3 beams of light shot out, and the wind howled. The extremely turbid gray smoke danced wantonly in the inky blue sky, strange and enchanting. The dazzling flames were the soul-summoning banner, and also the life-taking tentacles. In the distance, many Taiqing sect's disciples had secretly prepared. Under the mental spying, they looked at Su Yi and others in shock. Their excited eyes couldn't hide the shock in their hearts. They went in. The elders went in. Did you see that? That elder Su is as free as he is in the sea when he stands on the mouth. This is the domineering aura of the powerhouse. Above the low sky, Qiao Nongfeng looked at the direction where the 4 people left. His blazing eyes were fluctuating. It's up to you. After saying this, Qiao Nongfeng crossed his fingers together. The flames in his pupils fluttered silently. It was all shining with Qiao Nongfeng's hope. As the 4 rushed into the volcanic island, the shocking pressure swept across the world, and the surrounding wind and clouds surged. In the depths of the void that gradually deformed due to the high temperature, A series of sonic booms sounded like the roar of thousands of beasts. How? In the world of fire, Su-Yi slid down along the mountain wall. He could feel a huge fire attribute energy pouring down from the surrounding air. The fiery energy coming from all directions made Su-Yi's mind tremble. Such a high temperature shocked Su-Yi, not to mention Xiahong House and Lon Balian. Suddenly, Su-Yi shook his head that felt a slight pain. The light of the Hunyuan ancient bell quickly enveloped Su-Yi's body. Suddenly, everything began to calm down. The light red air in front of him hit Su-Yi's body clearly. With the protection of the ancient bell's light, Su-Yi's body temperature gradually dropped. Through the screening of the ancient bell's light, the energy that lowered the temperature penetrated into Su-Yi's meridians. Su-Yi could immediately feel a breath of recovery. After a short while, Su-Yi's consciousness began to pry into the volcanic tunnel that led to the depths of the underground. When his body landed, what appeared in front of Su-Yi were 7 to 8 different paths. This place seems to have been dug by someone. His gaze coldly landed on the rock wall. The cracked earth had obvious traces of human digging. Just in case, Su-Yi swallowed a shadow shuttle pill and chose one of the paths to enter. After walking for a short while, Su-Yi could feel that the temperature in the depths of the tunnel was getting higher and higher. The blood in his body seemed to be throbbing along with it. His gaze landed on the depths of the tunnel. From the probing soul energy, he could see that there were all kinds of winding paths that intertwined with each other. Some paths were interconnected, while others were dead ends. There were even many paths that had many corpses buried in them. From their attire, most of them were villagers from the vicinity. They even held stone hoes in their hands. Their bodies were covered in dragon scales that were devoured by the fire poison. After trying a few paths, Su-Yi suddenly understood that the thousands of paths under the island were opened by these villagers who were poisoned by the fire poison. Perhaps they used the fire poison to control these villagers, or perhaps the fire poison could resist the terrifying high temperature. Su-Yi already had a general answer in his heart as to why the Fire Evil Gang wanted to create a plague. After walking for so long, Su-Yi still didn't see a single figure. His suspicious eyes flickered. It seemed that the Fire Evil Gang was already fearless and didn't need anyone to guard here. A faint golden light flew past in front of him. Su-Yi turned his head. It was Xiahong House, Lon Balian, and the others. How's the situation on your side? After a simple exchange of information, the answers they got were roughly the same. In the end, the four of them determined the most likely path according to the footprints they had taken. It seems that the people of the Fire Evil Gang and the Divine Tiger sect are below. Su-Yi's eyes were burning. A murderous intent suddenly shot out from his eyes. What were the Fire Evil Gang and the forces behind them looking for? Could they create a plague and explore it despite the obstruction of the Tai Ching sect? After you go in, spread out. If you see Hu Qi, leave him to me. Su-Yi's blood suddenly surged in his mind. After experiencing the Spirit Ancient Village and the Chaos region, Su-Yi hated the Long family's behavior of destroying villages at the slightest provocation. As long as Hu Qi was below, Su-Yi would definitely make him pay the price. Chapter 2295 With a soft groan, Xiahong House, Dugiyumal, and the rest split up again. As they entered the passageway, the fiery wind inside was like the roar of a venomous dragon. The fierce wind spread out from the entrance of the passageway, making people want to crawl. Several figures flashed into the passageway. Immediately, a large area of space rippled out for the passageway like a heat wave. Su-Yi, Xiahong House, and the rest were shocked. Be careful, there are people in front. Su-Yi gestured to the scattered members of Xiahong House to stop them. With his bright eyes, Su-Yi sensed that there was a huge platform at the end of the passageway. Many noises could be heard from the platform. This time, our Fiery Fiend Gang will definitely achieve meteoric success. Hee. Yes, we have helped them find such a treasure. We will be able to live a good life with them in the future. Brothers, guard this place well. As long as someone comes, report it immediately. Su-yi used his spiritual senses and heard the sound of drinking and eating again. It seemed that there were many people guarding this place. Suddenly, Su-yi's eyes narrowed. He glanced at the members of Xiahong House and nodded warily. Cold light flashed in his eyes. Xiahong House, Lan Xiaolian, and Duguyumal were very clear about Su-yi's intention. These people were like ants that could be crushed at will. However, if they did not want to alert the enemy, they had to kill them in one blow. They could not let any information leak out. This was a test of the cooperation between the four of them. Charge! Su-yi took a deep breath and made a prompt decision. In a short moment, Su-yi's body swayed on the spot and rushed out of the passageway like a meteor. In the already hot environment, a large area of divine flame shot out and pierced through the crowd. Su-yi, who was in the air, quickly scanned the crowd. There were dozens of people guarding this place. Kill them all, Su-yi shouted. With the divine ring around him, Su-yi's body was surrounded by flames. He was like a human-shaped divine bird rushing into the sky. Golden light covered his palm, and his primordial chi quickly shattered the space. He immediately slapped at the crowd. Boom! Under the low, sonic boom, dozens of Fire Fiend gang members' gazes were filled with shock, and their faces were filled with shock. Looking at the flames smashing down from the sky, they all dropped the food in their hands and panicked to face the enemy. Who is it? Fear filled the eyes of the Fire Fiend gang's disciples as they looked at the flames that were descending from the sky. The flames were extremely ferocious, and they were definitely not below the 5th level of the Origin Ancestor realm. They immediately began to panic. Bang! Before they could react, Xiahong House, Lan Xiaolian, and Duguyumal created a huge, pitch-black crack in the sky. Strong gusts of wind swept across the area. Fierce energy streams cut through the space and rushed toward the crowd. Pooh! In an instant, before the Fire Fiend gang members could see clearly who it was, they were sent flying by the high impact. A large amount of blood sprayed into the air, and they died on the spot. Who are you? One of the disciples who had dragon scale patterns all over his body staggered backward as he looked at Su-yi and the others who were slowly landing on the ground. His eyes were filled with extreme fear as he asked in a trembling voice. When the light dissipated, the only surviving Fire Fiend gang disciple saw Su-yi's attire clearly. He then sneered. The Taiching sect's people have chased away the first wave. Is there another wave coming? Swish! Su-yi looked coldly at the Fire Fiend gang's disciple below him as a murderous intent shot out. He bent his fingers into claws, and 5 extremely ferocious flames shot out from his fingertips. The fierce and scorching energy wantonly fluctuated on the surface of his dragon scale patterns. The Fire Fiend gang's disciples' pupils shrunk immediately as a terrifying feeling of being gnawed by thousands of worms continued to spread throughout his body. Just as the Fire Fiend gang's disciple was about to scream, Su-yi kicked him heavily in the chest. Is it uncomfortable? I'm afraid the taste of the fire poison is even more uncomfortable than this, right? Su-yi smirked as his eyes were filled with contempt and disdain. Who exactly are you? Under the fiery red skin, the Fire Fiend gang's disciple's veins popped out. He was already foaming at the mouth as he stared at Su-yi. Su-yi sneered as a huge pressure rushed out. He looked into the Fire Fiend gang's disciple's eyes as his ferocious spirit energy quickly occupied the Fire Fiend gang's disciple's spiritual consciousness. Immediately, a terrifying feeling of being scratched rushed into his heart. The Fire Fiend gang's disciple seemed to see a sky full of evil spirits coming to take his life. After struggling for a while, he directly fainted. When facing opponents with a huge difference in spirit cultivation, the Imperial Palace had a kind of soul-searching technique. This was a soul skill that could only be used by a 5th-rank soul controller master and above. Su-yi, who was already in the early 5th rank, could easily search the memories of these Fire Fiend gang's disciples. What's the situation? Zhonglu narrowed her eyes as the golden light in her palm gradually dissipated. She looked gloomily at the Fire Fiend Gang's disciple under Su-yi. Su-yi frowned as he briefly recounted the memories that he had searched from the Fire Fiend Gang's disciple's mind. It turned out that the Fire Fiend Gang had discovered that there was an extremely high temperature under the Earth Fire Island a few months ago. It could help them cultivate their fire poison and increase their power greatly. The Fire Fiend Gang's confidence soared, and they started to explore the Earth Fire Island secrets while cultivating their fire poison. After all, the Fire Fiend Gang was a group of martial artists. Even if their cultivation increased greatly, how could they open up the Earth Fire Island in a day? The treacherous Fire Fiend Gang thought of using the surrounding villagers. They started to wantonly apply fire poison on the surrounding villagers who had a foundation in martial arts to open up the Earth Fire Island. The fire poison could control these villagers and also allow them to resist the high temperature of the Earth Fire Island. When the villagers were about to explode, the Fire Fiend Gang would take them away from the Earth Fire Island and slaughter them all. Some managed to escape with great difficulty, but the matter of the fire poison plague had completely exploded. When a matter was exposed, the Taiching sect started to pay attention to this matter. After that, the Fire Fiend Gang's actions were indeed much smaller. However, from the memories of the Fire Fiend Gang's disciple, Su-yi found that because the Earth Fire Island was at the border of the Divine Tiger Continent and the Taiching Continent, when the Fire Fiend Gang's actions became more and more intense, two groups of people came from the Divine Tiger Continent. Since then, the Fire Fiend Gang's strength soared. These two forces also secretly borrowed the Fire Fiend Gang to explore the Earth Fire Island. It was also because of the support of these two forces that the Fire Fiend Gang became even more unscrupulous towards the Taiching sect. They didn't even try to escape and only focused on opening up the Earth Fire Island. Which two forces? Doogie Yuma's blue eyes flickered as a cold intent shot out from between her eyebrows. Su-yi paused. In the hot air, his black pupils were abnormally cold. Two names slowly floated down: the Divine Tiger Sect and the Rain Song Palace. A gloomy and terrifying light flashed past the eyes of the Xiahong House and Doogie Yuma. Those who had participated in the Tianfeng ranking tournament would know that the Rain Song Palace was the second largest force on the Divine Tiger Continent. Chapter 2296. Who would have thought that these two factions would join hands? What secrets were hidden underneath? This. The four of them felt a chill in their hearts. Su-yi said, "These fiery evil gang members are of low status. They can't find anything meaningful in their minds. Let's continue." Suddenly, light shot out from their feet again. With the memories of the fiery evil gang members, Su-yi was able to lead the way more easily. Su-yi's eyes were cold, but his expression was unusually calm. There was a voice in his heart that kept telling him that this matter was not as simple as it seemed. It might not be just a secret realm or a treasure of heaven and earth, because everything was too coincidental. At this moment, Sikong Sangxing went to the Thunderfire's sacred temple. On the other side, the fiery evil gang, the Divine Tiger Sect, and the Rain Palace's movements were expanding. What secrets did the Taiching continent have that no one knew? Could it be related to the Chaos Origin Demon Emperor and the Heaven-Suppressing Stone? Su-yi did not dare to think about it. Su-yi did not want too many people to know about these things. If the Long family knew about the Chaos Origin Demon Emperor, or if that old man from outside the realm knew about it, the situation in the Sky Barbarians would only become more complicated. The reddish-gold fire tribute light hit the tunnel. The few of them were like ghosts as they shuttled through the tunnel. The faint traces they left behind made people's hearts palpitate. Su-yi and the others slowed down their pace when they vaguely sensed the earth-shattering knocking sounds ahead of them. Su-yi and the others kept their auras to the minimum. The space in front of them was blocked by several huge rocks. It was as if the people inside did not want others to know what they were doing. Ding! Ding! The earth-shattering knocking sounds resounded through the world. The crisp sound of the rocks hitting the walls made Su-yi and the others' hearts tremble. Through the cracks in the rocks, Su-yi and the others could see hundreds of miners working day and night. Looking at the danger in front of him, Su immediately recalled the time when he and Susu were captured to be miners in the savage demon forest. But now, the situation was completely reversed. Hurry up! Move faster! A delicate voice rang out from the high platform, and a purple figure shot out along with a python-like whip. Pa! Demonic chi surged in the air, and violent purple light shone from the whip. Immediately, the tremendous natural energy suppressed the extreme heat in the surroundings, causing a loud noise. As the whip fell to the ground, the red soil instantly cracked, and a fierce wind shot out like lightning. The nearby miners were instantly sent flying, crashing into the ground like bombs as blood flowed out. Bang! Perhaps it was because the temperature in their bodies was too high, but the miners who were hit fell to the ground, bleeding from their 7 orifices and their eyes bulging. The dragon scales all over his body protruded out in a terrifying manner. He lay paralyzed on the ground, dead as can be. Useless thing. All of you get moving. Whoever dares to slack off will end up like this person. The eyes of the purple voice were filled with contempt and disdain. Then, he turned into a stream of light and rushed back to the high platform. Ooh! When the miners present saw this scene, their eyes were already burning with passion. But when they saw the corpses on the ground, they suppressed the anger in their hearts and continued hammering. Helpless sighs and sighs could be heard everywhere. This place was filled with despair towards life. When Su Yi and the rest saw this scene, a deep breath could be heard from the nostrils of Lan Pelian and Shui Honglu. That bitch must be Lin Feiqian from Songyu Palace. Her ranking in the Tianfeng battle is not bad. I didn't expect her to be so hateful. Lan Pelian gritted her teeth. To someone like her who had always treated her subordinates with respect, this place was simply a massacre and torture. Standing at the side, Shui Honglu and Dugi Yuma stared coldly at Lin Feiqian's back, as though they were going to tear her to shreds in the next second. Su Yi could understand their feelings the best. Shui Honglu and Dugi Yuma's background was very similar. Both of them had survived the massacre of their villages by the Long family. When they saw a large number of innocent villagers being dragged into the mountain, they treated the lives of the miners as nothing more than grass. Along the way into the cave, the extreme fire attribute Yuan Qi made Su Yi aware of the worst possible outcome. Even if these villagers could survive, they would not be able to endure the fire poison. They would still face death in the end. Being killed first would be a form of relief. No one could endure the pain of being seen by their family members with their dragon scales popping out, their blood vessels bursting, and their entire body engulfed in flames. Su Yi, who was muttering to himself, could not help but have a trace of viciousness in his eyes. He looked in the direction of Lin Feiqian, and Su Yi's eyes suddenly lit up. "Look over there," Su Yi said softly. Su Yi was pointing at a relatively flat plateau. From there, one could overlook the entire rocky region. On the flat ground, there were 5 or 6 relatively large tents. From the tent that Lin Feiqian had entered, Su Yi could see that there were other people inside. Cough. Extremely soft coughing sounds instantly traveled into Su Yi's ears from afar. Su Yi opened his consciousness, and his origin ancestor cultivation immediately spread out. Su Yi instantly opened his eyes as he heard the sound of knocking on the walls of the mountain. A faint smile appeared on his face. Hu Qi is inside. Su Yi chuckled softly. Immediately, the Xiahong house and the rest became excited. Since Lin Feiqian and Hu Qi were both here, it meant that the thing that the Divine Tiger Sect and the Rain Song Palace were looking for was here. Can you think of a way to listen to what they are saying? Dugu Yuma frowned. His blue crystal double moon eyes also instantly released an extreme glow as he began to survey the surroundings. Beside him, Lan Balian pondered for a moment and quickly formed a hand seal. Suddenly, waves rolled, and azure light transformed into the sound of a crystal blue conch in the air. Su Yi, think of a way to send a trace of water Yuan Qi outside the tent. Everyone can hear it clearly. Under the blue light, Lan Balian's expression was incomparably serious. Hearing this, He rolled his eyes and lightly flicked his finger. A strand of water, yuan qi refined from the water heaven suppressing stone, was as thin as a strand of hair, but it was fierce and terrifying. Accompanied by a desolate killing intent, it silently attached itself to the tent. Soon, the voices of Hu Qi and Lin Feiqian rang out from within the conch. Elder Hu Qi, this time, I worked with you behind the Rainsong Palace's back because I wanted to form a relationship with the Long family. Don't lie to me. Lin Feiqian's voice was cold, and there was a hint of accusation in it. Immediately, Yi realized that the Rainsong Palace did not know about this matter. Seeing that the matter was getting out of hand, Lin Feiqian seemed to be somewhat anxious. Cough, cough. Hu Qi sneered. The sound of the chair rubbing against each other slowly came from the conch. Chapter 2297. Don't worry, Miss Lin. I just came back from the Sky Sea City under the orders of the Long family. As long as we succeed, not only will I be able to rise in the Divine Tiger sect, but you will also be able to soar in the Rainsong Palace. In the future, you will also have a place in the Long family. Following that, Hu Qi's voice was slightly weak. His voice was filled with resentment and viciousness. If we are right, that thing is behind this mountain wall. The first thing we have to do after getting it is to capture that brat Yi. After Hu Qi finished speaking, he began to cough violently. It was obvious that his injuries were quite serious. Lin Feiqian walked back and forth in the tent. Through the light and shadow, her charming curves made people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Of course, no matter if we get that thing or capture Yi, if we succeed, I will consider this cooperation a success. Lin Feiqian's eyes flashed with a cold light. Soon after, her cold eyes flashed and endless killing intent poured out. These words were all heard by Yi and the rest. The gazes of the four darkened at the same time, and an eerie chill flowed from their eyes as they looked at each other. Damn it, these two have colluded behind our backs and committed so many atrocious crimes. How dare they boast shamelessly that they want to capture you? Lan Xiaolian couldn't take it anymore. Killing intent surged from her as she glared at Yi. Yi's gaze was fixed on the mountain wall. There were many people in the world who wanted to kill him. There was no lack of Hu Qi. Lin Feiqian was still alive. Noticing that Yi had quietened down, Yumal walked forward and whispered, "What's wrong? What did you find?" Immediately, Xiahong House and Lan Belian also quieted down. Xiahong House nodded in the direction of Yi. Lan Belian immediately understood. She knew that Yi must have found something. She said softly, "Let's wait and see." Yumal also stood quietly. His blue eyes flashed as he stood in front of Yi. He fixed his gaze on Yi. Chilala. Beside him, Yi's eyes shot out a trace of golden red light. A fiery aura surged out from his body, and a terrifying and fierce aura fluctuated rapidly. Suddenly, Yumal swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The crystal blue light flashed out of his eyes, and the shapeless sword Qi surged out, following Yi's line of sight. "Lady Dugu, try and see if you can see what's behind the cliff." Yi sniffed and whispered. Nodding, Yumal started to move. She condensed a palm print at lightning speed. Boundless energy rose around her body. She looked at the mountain wall, blinking her eyes. After a long while, Xiahong Lu and Lan Belian looked at each other and didn't dare to breathe loudly. Yumal staggered and let out a painful groan. "What happened?" Lan Yelian rushed forward to support Yumal. She was shocked to see the latter gasping for air with a pale face. Yi tilted his head, and his eyes flickered as well. He slowly retracted his aura, allowing Yumal to calm down. "Sea of fire. Sea of fire with rolling lava," Yumal exclaimed. Her eyes trembled as if she had seen something extremely terrifying. What's so terrifying about a sea of fire? Lan Belian was puzzled as she supported Yumal. They had seen a sea of fire before. Wasn't it normal for there to be a sea of fire at the mouth of the earth fire? Xiahong Lu sensed Dugi Yuma's aura suspiciously. She saw Dugi Yuma gasping for air. Her body was weak, and her forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. Phew! He nodded his head. His eyes darkened, and an ancient power came pressing down on Dugi Yuma from his palm. Bang! The gentle palm energy was endless, and it carried a great force, which calmed Dugi Yuma down quickly. After half a breath, Dugi Yuma's face finally relaxed, and a touch of blood slowly surged up. Staring at Dugi Yuma, who let out a long breath, Su-yi said coldly, "I also saw a surging sea of fire at the back." Su-yi's eyes trembled as if to say that even Su-yi's soul trembled when he recalled the flames he had seen earlier. What kind of sea of fire could make the king of Sky Pride and the Sword Immortal's disciple tremble at the same time? Xiahong Lu and Lan Balian took a step forward at the same time. Their eyes flashed as they used their spiritual senses to spy on the abnormality in the distance. Rumble! In Xiahong Lu and Lan Balian's consciousness, there was an overwhelming amount of fire attribute energy sweeping out from the back of the mountain wall. Upon closer inspection, the entire space behind them was filled with ferocious fire attribute energy. Endless flames were surging within the mountain wall like fire dragons. At this moment, the mountain wall that had been dug for a long time had become transparent and thin. The sparkling red mountain wall seemed to be only a foot away. Suddenly, Xiahong Lu and Lan Balian's pupils shrank, and their hair stood on their backs. Even they had not expected such a terrifying sea of fire. Streaks of fire-red patterns spiraled around the mountain wall, bringing with them a shocking and majestic aura. The four of them gasped at the same time. Why is the fire inside so powerful? Xiahong Lu retracted his gaze, and his gaze instantly became vigilant. Looking at the faintly distorted space, Xiahong Lu's mouth twitched slightly as he looked at Su-yi. At this moment, Lan Balian's eyes twitched, and her dry lips trembled slightly as she spoke to everyone in an extremely serious tone. "Everyone, we might be in big trouble." Lan Balian clenched her hands tightly, and a chill shot out from her pitch-black eyes. As the Celestial of Sky Sea City, she had been in charge of various spirit treasure pavilions in the Tianyin continent for many years. When her tone became serious, it meant that the situation was very serious. "Say it." Su-yi seemed to be prepared. The entire space suddenly froze, and a domineering and ferocious aura shot out from his eyes. "Do you still remember what other top forces there are in the Tai-Ching continent other than the Tai-Ching sect?" Lan Balian's heart trembled, and her expression was very serious. "There's also the Thunderfire's sacred palace in the Tai-Ching continent." Dugi Yuma's beautiful eyes moved slightly. Just as she finished speaking, her entire body froze on the spot, and her expression was extremely moved. The Thunderfire's sacred palace. It was once said that the various aristocratic families were isolated from the Tianyin continent, and no one knew about them. They also had their own backing. The Long family had their bloodline, the Yin family had their ancient techniques, the Mirage Sea Despairs could be considered as their backing, the Myriad Sword Alliance had their Sword Mountain, and Sky Sea City originally had their own 10,000 miles of sea region and the desolate engulfing Heaven Beast. Only the Thunderfire's sacred palace's backing was clear to everyone. It was the boundless, endless fire territory that could burn the heavens and destroy the earth. Even an Origin Domain Realm expert would have to think twice before entering. Suddenly, the four of them looked at the mountain wall at the same time, and an indescribable, complicated expression quickly flashed across their eyes. If this was really the Thunderfire's sacred palace's endless fire territory, then the Divine Tiger sect and the Rain Song Palace's intentions were shocking. What shocking thing was there in the endless fire territory? Chapter 2298. Was the Divine Tiger sect doing this to expand their influence or to stir up trouble among the aristocratic families? The more they thought about it, the more Su-yi and Xiahong House became silent. Since the endless fire territory was behind them, A dangerous look appeared in Su Yi's eyes. The golden light under his feet fluctuated as he stepped forward and whispered, "Everyone, since we are already involved in this mess, we can only brace ourselves. However, we must not let these villagers continue to dig. If the wall of the Sea of Fire breaks, the entire Earth Fire Island will be annihilated by the Sea of Fire." Su Yi's voice quickly became fierce as he stared at the mountain wall and the tints on it that were becoming more and more transparent. The flames in his eyes surged, and his anger soared. Naturally, the Earth Fire Island, which was above the sea, didn't have to worry about the volcano eruption. However, if it was the Endless Fire territory, everything would change. All the losses would be multiplied by 10,000 times. In a short moment, the four of them immediately felt the seriousness of the situation. Their eyes flashed with a concentrated radiance, and they were fluctuating nonstop. At the same time, everyone was surrounded by radiance, and a huge pressure enveloped heaven and earth. They were already prepared to fight. The four of them already had the same idea. Now, even if the volcano erupted, they had to move all the miners out of the village to minimize the losses along the coast of the Taichin continent. At this moment, Qiu Nongfeng and the others were still waiting outside. If the endless flames sprayed out, it would mean death for them. By then, the Taichin sect would definitely counterattack, and the Taichin continent would be in chaos. The Divine Tiger sect would have already obtained the divine item of the Endless Fire territory. With the Long Clan support, everything would be irreversible. Hoo-hoo. Thinking of this, Su Yi was already holding the blood demon killing god sword in his hand, and the blood-colored sword radiance shot out. Suddenly, a huge and powerful wave spread out. Su Yi said fiercely, "These villagers are up to you. Honglu and I will block Hu Qi and the others." The sword radiance was cleansed, and the golden light soared into the sky. Su Yi tilted his head, and his eyes were filled with determination. He stared at the group of people who were working together and said, "Remember, the Sea of Fire is merciless. Once it erupts, protect the villagers. Also protect yourselves. You don't have to care about me." The three of them were stunned at the same time. Su Yi's words were self-evident. The three of them didn't have fire elemental essence, and they didn't have the Emperor Sparrow's protection. Su Yi's words were meant to protect himself. Hearing this, the two girls nodded. The golden red energy on Su Yi's sword shot out. Bang! The huge boulder in front of him quickly turned into powder under the ferocious impact. Rumble! The mountains crumbled and the earth cracked as a huge sonic boom resounded through the world. Countless villagers who were knocking on the mountains stared blankly at the sky, only to see four astonishing Yuan Qi attributes streaking across the sky. The energy was completely released, and the surrounding space rippled with cracking sounds. In the red flame space, a large number of cracks spread out like a spider web. Many villagers gripped their hoes tightly and looked up at the sky. Their eyes were bloodshot as they shouted loudly. Some irritable villagers even threw their tools at the sky. Not good. Some of these villagers who have been poisoned by the fire poison are already beyond cure. They are delirious and can't differentiate between you and me. In the sky, a large number of villagers were shouting loudly, compared to these saviors who came out of nowhere. The villagers who had been poisoned by the fire poison only wanted to dig out the endless fire domain. In their hearts, as long as the excavation was successful, they would be able to escape from this place. The fear of the fire poison was deeply rooted in their hearts. Instantly, the sky was filled with roars as the zombie-like villagers exploded. Their fiery red eyes released ferocious fire elemental essence. Don't care so much. Save as many as you can. Su Yi, who had leaped up, and Zhonglu's eyes flickered. His figure created a violent and ferocious ripple in front of him as though it had materialized. The two girls looked at Su Yi, who was leaving, and clenched their teeth. Huge palm prints were sent out, and waves of water vapor and formless sword aura quickly enveloped the villagers. Under this aura, it was as though he could control the world. The space around him was distorted, and the sound of wind and thunder could be heard. It was soul-shaking. You take the east, and I will take the west. Try to bring all of them out. Lon Balian shouted at Dugayuma. Under the horrifying water elemental essence, the entire sky seemed to be trembling. At this moment, the sky was filled with wind and clouds, and it was as though it was about to shatter the void. As the water and fire mixed, white steam rose. Lon Balian, who had disguised herself, and Dugayuma worked together. Hundreds of villagers staggered as they were enveloped by the elemental essence. A huge suction force surged out, and in the next moment, hundreds of people disappeared. The waves rolled, and a huge bubble was hidden in Lon Balian's sleeve. All the villagers were kept in an instant. Lon Balian and Dugayuma looked at the sky. The flames in the distance were flickering, and a large area of space rippled through the air. Let's go. Let's go out first. Inform Chionongfing to get ready. But Su, Yi, and the rest. Dugayuma pursed his lips. His aged skin couldn't conceal the concern and anxiety in his eyes. At this moment, the situation was critical. It wasn't that Hu Qi and Lin Feiqian were terrifying, but the endless fire territory definitely had extreme destructive power. Feeling the vigorous fire elemental essence in the sky and the gathering of fire clouds, Dugayuma calmed down and followed Lon Balian out of the Earth Fire Island. Rumble. In just a moment, Su, Yi, and Xue Honglu noticed that the two girls had left. They also came to the front of the tent. Hearing the noise, Hu Qi and Lin Feiqian rushed out. A vast aura shot out from the tent. Hu Qi, who hadn't recovered yet, stood in front of them. He looked at Su, Yi, and Xue Honglu with coldness surging in his eyes. Only two people from the Taiqing sect came. They really aren't afraid of death. Hu Qi's eyes were cold, and there was a trace of disdain at the corner of his white and dry mouth. At this moment, Su, Yi, and Xue Honglu were still in disguise. They opened their sleeves, and the whistling wind revealed a trace of vigorous dominance in the fire elemental essence in the sky. 7th level of origin ancestor realm. But it's not enough. The Taiqing sect's people have already died. Do they still want to die? Hu Qi stroked his beard and said to Lin Feiqian beside him. Lin Feiqian suddenly stood up and said softly to Su, Yi, and Xue Honglu, "You should be an elder-level figure in the Taiqing sect. You're already so old. Isn't it a pity to die?" Hearing this, Su, Yi, and Xue Honglu shook their heads and smiled bitterly. With a burst of light in his eyes, the primeval chaos supreme technique quickly circulated around him, and the aura in the turbulent space rose again. Doing these dirty things in the territory of the Taiqing sect? The people of the Divine Tiger Continent are a group of dirty dogs. Su Yi's eyes were cold. He immediately pointed at Hu Qi's face and scolded. "Do you think no one knows you are hiding in the mountains? Today I will kill you, this heartless old thief." Su Yi said angrily. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.